Welcome to another episode of the Two Abdullahs. This is now episode 3 with your two favorite slaves of Allah. Yep, we're slaves of Allah. We are disobedient slaves of Allah. Your two favorite disobedient slaves of Allah, bringing you the straightforward, no nonsense, no flack evidence from the Quran and Sunnah. Today's episode is going to be about Hudood. Abdullah Gondal, what's Hudood?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show again. It's our third episode. So Hudood are very controversial. Some people might know them as Sharia law. Hudood are basically punishments for legal punishments to deal with issues like adultery, apostasy, blasphemy, sorcery. How do you deal with if a husband cheats on his wife and vice versa? Well, how do you go about the legal system? How do you figure out if establish that the crime was committed? And then we will also talk about the effects of Hudood and the setting of the Hudood punishments in their socio-political context in the 7th century. And we will also discuss why they're not appropriate for the 21st century or moving forward. So what we will start with today is we will start with a small clip of Dr. Yasir Qadhi, and he will tell us that the hudud are very problematic, okay? And then we will see that all the religions have these problematic beliefs. So without further ado, Samir, you can start here.
But before I do that,
Mute my mic.
before I do that, did you say sorcery?
Yes, literally, I'm not joking. If you thought the Quran mentions black magic in the two Ma'udatain, the two Quls, or in Surah Baqarah where the angels Harut Marut came, that's not it. The Hadiths show that you can kill people for witchcraft and sorcery. In fact, Muhammad's wives and some caliphs did that. If you thought Christians were the only one killing witches, you were wrong.
Whoa, magic is real? You kill people for magic? Wow. Oh, wow. This is a very rationalistic religion. Most logical religion, brother. Killing people for magic, for doing magic. Reminds me of a little clip I saw of a magician in some African country where the host actually set his head on fire, and it wasn't a joke because he thought the guy was doing sorcery. So bad. So before I show the clip, we just want to make it clear that what Yasir Qadhi said about this clip. Yasir Qadhi didn't know he was being recorded at this event. He was talking to non-Muslims, and he had to kind of make explanation for why he said what he said, because it sounds bad. It sounds like he's saying Islam is bad. And what he said was, I was talking to non-Muslims, okay, guys, and this was at a time where they were worried about Muslims being attacked and killed, and I'm trying to make Islam look good. He said, I'm not going to go back on what I said because I wasn't dishonest. It was just the way I was saying it. I was trying to make them like it. I'm not going to use the T word, taqiyya. I don't think that's what he was doing. But he was trying to like soften the blow, the Dava way, So yeah, let's show it. So we're not, just to be clear, we're not twisting. This is his own words. And he said, I stick to what I said. I didn't lie in any way. I just was trying to be smart about how I said it. So let's see what he said.
Does medieval Islamic law prescribe the death penalty for extramarital sex? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It does prescribe the death penalty for extramarital, not premarital. Adultery, basically. Yes, it does. But once again, how often was this law actually applied even in medieval times? Was this the norm, or was this a type of scare tactic so that people don't actually commit adultery? Even according to our own medieval scholars, this law is actually meant more as something in the books to terrify you, rather than to actually implement. And it is very rare, even in medieval Islam, to come across these occurrences. Should they be updated and modernized? Again, that's an ongoing discussion. And that's one of the main sources of intra-Muslim dialogue. We are debating amongst ourselves. I'm sure many Jews and many Christians understand this. The texts say things that are somewhat problematic at times. All religious people know what I'm talking about here, right? The texts have some laws that are somewhat bizarre. And this is all texts. Need I quote you Leviticus and Deuteronomy and whatnot? I mean, you understand my point here. So Muslims do need to have that dialogue, and they are having it. But the claim that somehow this is representative of mainstream, or even worse, that this is somehow relevant to us American Muslims, I mean, that's simply preposterous. What has this act got to do with us here? I understand that at a theoretical level, it's nice to discuss, let academics come, let clerics come, let's discuss this out. But I, as a national American cleric, when I go to sleep at night, it's not my primary concern. What do I do with the text about?
Okay, yeah, that was it. I'm surprised he used the T word, terrorize. So who's doing the terrorizing here? Who's the terrorist?
Well, one thing I wanted to mention is he actually admits that extramarital sex has a death penalty. We will talk about if you keep doing, even if you're not married, if you keep committing fornication, you'll still eventually get stoned to death. But what's important is he says that these were never applied, as if he's acting like they were like very rare. Well, but you guys will see that we will show you literally 4 instances in Muhammad's life and his Sahaba stoning adulterers. It's not something super rare. It happens so many times in Muhammad's life in Medina. Another thing what I find is update and modernize. So if he says you have to update and modernize Islamic law and hudud, does that imply that, Allah's laws from the 7th century are outdated? Do we need to update them? So there's a lot of these questions that follow, right? And then what extent do we update them to? Who draws the line? Where to stop reforming it? Because that's all, again, a subjective exercise by Muslim scholars. So like I said, as soon as you go into the ijtihad and all that, Islamic morality loses its objective allure completely. All right, so what we will see next is one of the most common ways of executing people is off with their head. And the beheading thing, as you've come across in videos from ISIS and whatnot, is a very go-to method. So here we see a few hadith where did Muhammad behead people? Of course. So there was, on the left, Abu Burda said there was a man who was brought, who apostated. He invited to repent for 20 days or so. He didn't, and he was beheaded. It's from Sunan Abu Dawood, Sahih and Chain. Then on to its right, we have the hadith of Banu Qurayza. Here, look, Muhammad he's killing these people with the swords, and then he has a lady beheaded. And she's laughing hysterically, seeing all these people being beheaded. The Banu Qurayza topic is on its own, a separate discussion, where Muhammad used the emergence of pubic hairs, and based off of that, either killed them or not. Anyways, let's not digress. So coming back, the Messenger of Allah said, any man who goes out and tries to create division among my ummah, strike his neck. It's a Hasan Hadith. I met my maternal uncle who was carrying a flag. He said, the Messenger of Allah sending me to a man who married his father's wife after he died to strike his neck and kill him. Now, it's weird, like he's just wanting this guy to go, he's sending guys to go kill somebody for marrying somebody else's thought. Like, it's just a little over the top. But what we do go on the next one is very interesting, is remember to not have sex with Muhammad's concubine. Because what happens then is you also get beheaded. So we will look at the hadith that's in the next slide, and it is from, I believe, Sahih al-Muslim. So here we have an instance where Anas reported that a person was charged with fornication with the slave girl of Allah's messenger. So Muhammad has this concubine. Some other guy messes up with her. So Muhammad gets mad and he says, go find this guy, and then Ali finds this guy, and he's about to kill him, but then he finds out that this guy doesn't even have a sexual organ, so he can't even commit fornication. So he finds out that it was wrong, so he ended up not beheading him. But the point to show here is that Muhammad will order you to be beheaded for these kind of things, and it's not uncommon for Muslims, Muhammad, his companions, and the caliphs after to indulge in these kind of punishments. It's not unique just to ISIS. In fact, it is also found directly in Islamic literature. And these are just 4 or 5 I've shown you. There's a lot more as well. Carrying on from there, let's see what we have next. See, this is where it gets interesting. Now, the Quran has, it initially said that, I think it's Surah Nisa, verse 15, where if women are charged with fornication and they bring 4 witnesses, you're supposed to push them in their houses and keep them there till they die. The funny thing with that was, the women said we can stay in our homes and keep inviting people and keep having sex and extramarital affairs. So it doesn't really do much, right? So Muhammad's like, oh yeah, I didn't think this through. So then the verse came about the 4 witness rule and the flogging. But the funny thing is, the hadith show that the verse about stoning was revealed, but it was cancelled. But it was only cancelled in its recitation, but you still follow it in practice, which doesn't make sense. If you want to keep the practice, why remove the verse from the book? That just makes it more confusing. And if anything, lends to the argument that stoning was not part of Islam, if anything, for those side of the apologetics. So the Hudood thing, and with Lian, what happens is, well, let's focus on the stoning hadith first. So this verse says, the unmarried woman or unmarried man found guilty of sexual intercourse, lash each one of them with 100 lashes. And here's important, and do not be taken by pity for them. So even if you feel bad for them while this is happening, you shouldn't feel any sadness or pity for them in the religion of Allah. And let a group of believers witness their punishment, as in scare tactic. Hey, look, this person had sex, he's gonna get whipped. And these are public floggings, like you can see in the picture. It's not uncommon. In fact, this is very common in Saudi Arabia and Indonesia, countries like that, and Malaysia, I think, as well. So let's go on and see what is next. Here it gets really interesting. Now, if you have ever come across videos of people getting stoned, normally you'll see them that they're buried in a pit and their head is left out, and then people gather and suddenly just start pelting them with thrones. It's so barbaric and so hard to watch. But one of the issues is now there's a difference in how women are stoned versus how men are stoned. So in some hadith, and we will come across them as well, women are supposed to be dug into the ground and then their clothes and stuff tied around them, according to some scholars. Whereas men don't need to be dug into a hole up to a certain level and have their arms and stuff tied. So there are these nuances, or let's say variations and differences based on gender. Like I said, these videos are hard to watch. You can find numerous of them online. We are not obviously going to show them here. So let's go on to see if we have any evidence of the Quran having verses about stoning, or that Muhammad actually ever having stoned adulterers. Now, what we are getting to is the hadith which talks about the verse of stoning. On the left side, we see Sahih Muslim. It says that Allah had revealed the verse of stoning, and then it was found in the book, and it was abrogated. And the Messenger of Allah awarded the punishment of stoning to death. And after him, we also rewarded the stoning. And then Omar is scared that people will forget the verse and stop stoning people. Like, this is how important stoning and the hudud and the precision of the hudud is to these people. Remember, Yasir Qadhi keeps saying modify them, but this guy's saying, no, you got to stick to the stoning. You got to stick to the stoning. He keeps bringing back to the Quran and Sunnah. And that's what I keep talking to you about is, if we modernize it, then you're implying that Allah's morality or these moral injunctions are outdated. And you're exercising your own subjectiveness to do that. So that does not look good on the theological aspect of Islam. Anyways, from the right side, we see that it talks about the details of between adultery, flogging, and stoning. And this is a narration in Bulugh al-Maram about the Hudood chapter says, the Messenger of Allah said, Allah has ordained a way for those women, unmarried females who committed adultery. When an unmarried man commits adultery with an unmarried woman, they should receive 100 lashes and be exiled for a year. If they fornicate while they were married, they shall receive 100 lashes and be stoned to death. Now, this doesn't make sense. You gotta flog them first, lash them first, and then kill them after with stones. Just stone them. Like, what's the point? Like, unless you want to torture them with pain first, lash them, and then it makes no sense. But what we will go forward is, did Muhammad and his followers stone people to death? And after that, what we will do is we'll take our first caller of the day.
Yeah, that was contradicting itself, eh? Like lashing and stoning. That's odd. I didn't even notice that one before.
This will also come up with the homosexuals, where this is weird. Ibn Abbas said that you have to first throw them down from top of a mountain or a high place head first. And when they die, then you stone their dead body. Makes no sense.
I'm gonna post the link now, and we'll continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what we'll do that right now, I'll let Samir talk for a bit. We'll actually explain this. This is hilarious. This is if you cannot see how Muhammad was making this stuff up as he was willy-nilly going along, we can't help you anymore to see it than clearer than this.
Yeah.
To give you a background, like I explained earlier, the initial punishment was to seclude the women in their houses, but the women said we can keep committing zina in the house, like it doesn't help. So Mom's like, oh, didn't think it through. So then lashing and the stoning came, right? But then what ends up happening is this thing. Now, this whole story is accounted in detail in Asbab al-Nuzul by Wahidi and Tafsir ibn Abbas and other tafsirs as well, where this guy goes and he finds himself. This is in the tafsir. He's like, I found my wife cheating, and then I came back, and then he's like, well, you need 4 witnesses. Like, well, by the time I go back, she'll be done. I can't get the men and have them see that penetration. It just is very hard. So then Muhammad said, okay, well, the husband can just swear by Allah 4 times and then accuse his wife, and that will equate to 4 witnesses. So what I'll do is I'll let Samir explain this, because he has made a video on this.
Yeah, so the Masked Arab actually made a video on this too, and when I saw this, I was just telling Abdullah Gondal before we had this chat that this one example right here from Asbab al-Nuzul, the reason for revelation, is enough for people to see that Islam is made up. Muhammad didn't know what he was doing, and he was making it up as he went along. This example in the Quran is so obvious that these laws were not thought through clearly, that they didn't make any sense. We just look at this example. Husband says, my wife cheated on me. Wife says, did not. Where's your 4 witnesses, buddy? Husband's like, shit. Husband goes, complains to the Prophet. It's like, I saw her, man. I really saw her cheating on me, but I swear to Allah, she cheated on me. I don't have any witnesses. And, the rule is, if you accuse a chaste woman of adultery, you're the one that gets flogged. Now, let's go to the actual story that happened, because I think it's more interesting, right? So Imam Ahmed recorded Ibn Abbas said, when the ayah, and those who accuse chaste women and do not produce 4 witnesses, flog them with 80 stripes and reject the testimony forever, was revealed. Sa'd ibn Wada, may Allah be pleased with him, the leader of the Ansar, said, is this how it's revealed, O Messenger of Allah? Now, it's interesting. He's questioning the messenger. Is this how the verse is revealed? Like, he's a little bit disturbed, right? Messenger of Allah said, oh, I put it in brackets. It should be in quotation marks. Oh, Ansar, did you hear what your leader said? He's getting mad. He's like, did you hear what this guy just said to me? Are you asking me what Allah just revealed? Do you guys see what this man is asking me? And then they're like, "Oh, Messenger of Allah, please don't blame him." They're like, they're like feeling awkward and embarrassed. Like, what do we say to him? He's a jealous man. They're trying to make him calm down. He goes, Muhammad's mad. By Allah, he never married a woman who was not a virgin, and never divorced a woman. But none of us would dare to marry her because he's so jealous. By Allah, O Messenger of Allah, I know the ayah is true from Allah, but I'm surprised. If I found some wicked man lying down with my wife, should I not disturb him until I found four witnesses? Like, he's like, I'm seeing a man doing the jiggy wiggy with my wife, and you want me to go and find witnesses? Like, I'm gonna go running around. Hey, guys, come here, my wife. Look what my wife is doing. Like, already he's like shocked what his wife is doing. Now he wants to find four other men to go and look at what his wife is. Like, oh, hola wala quwwata illa billah. Like, he doesn't want anyone to see this, and now he's saying he has to go and find four people. Oh my God, toba, right? And he's like, if I find a wicked man laying down with my wife, by Allah, he would have finished before I could bring. So then right after this happened, Hilal ibn Umayyah came back and he found a man having sex. Now, I don't know what's up with these Sahabi and
Their wives they're either very bad husbands or their wives just keep cheating on them, man. Like even Muhammad's Aisha scandal, like it's not just the Sahaba either.
Oh my God. So this story just gets worse and worse, right? So Hilal came back and he said, I saw with my own eyes and I heard with my own ears. And the thing is, this is a man, according to the Sirah, that the Quran was revealed that Allah forgave him for not going to one of the battles. So this man, Allah has already talked about him. Now Muhammad's in a trouble. He has this man that now he has to flog this guy. This guy is so angry that he doesn't care if he's going to be flogged. He's like, Messenger of Allah, I saw what happened with my own eyes. Okay, and I heard with my own ears. He heard the noises, okay?
Yeah.
He went to the Messenger of Allah in the morning and he said, I came to my wife at night and I found a man with her. And he emphasized it. Messenger of Allah did not like what he said and got very angry. Messenger of Allah is like coming up with these Allah is coming up with these rules that now Messenger of Allah is in trouble. He doesn't know what to do because one of his good companions is complaining that his wife cheated on him. He has no evidence. Puts Messenger of Allah in a trouble, right? In a sticky situation.
Yeah.
And the Ansar, the companions, gathered around him and said, we are being tested by what Sa'd ibn Ubadah said. And now he's going to punish him.
Sorry, man.
He's going to punish. And the Ansar, like, it's like, oh my God. They're like, what do we do, right? They're like worried now. And he's going to declare his testimony before people to be unacceptable. Hilal said, by Allah, I hope that Allah will make a way out of this problem for me. He's telling the messenger. It's almost like they know that they talk to the messenger.
Yeah.
And like suddenly Allah comes and solves this problem that was created by the messenger himself. And Hilal said, I notice how why is Muhammad angry?
A lot of the times what happens, like if from a neuroscience perspective, people that are epileptics and have Geschman syndrome and hyper-religiosity, they do not like being challenged on their beliefs and practices. And they have a tendency to, because they can't sustain their points and arguments with evidence, so it's natural for them to react with anger and frustration as a reply. And you see this constantly in the Quran where Muhammad is criticized, oh, you're repeating old stories, or you're just a crazy poet or a kahin. He always exclusively replies, but you're going to go burn in hell. So there's that. Well, anyways, let's not go too far.
He doesn't like being questioned, right?
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, Allah... And by the way, people waiting in the chat, we'll get to you in a second. Lo and behold, the revelation came, his face changed, right? And it said, as for those who accuse their wives, but have no witnesses except themselves, let the testimony of one of them be equal to 4 testimonies by Allah.
Like this is just ridiculous.
And then Allah said, oh my God, my prayers have been answered, right? Allah has solved the problem, okay? And then he said, Allah is not going to punish me for it, and he's not going to make me flogged for it. So then he testified 5 times that his wife was lying. Then his wife was asked, okay, now what do you say? She's like, well, I'm going to swear 5 times as well that I didn't do it, right? And then Muhammad is basically shaming her because Muhammad thinks she's guilty of it, and he trusted his male companion over his female companion. And he basically, you know, the point is that there's a little bit of a side note here, which is that the child is not attributed to any father. So the child is not given any lineage. And he said, you know, don't accuse the child, which is a good thing. But it's kind of weird that the lineage is not considered. So the child is basically fatherless. He's sort of like an orphan, right? Which is an interesting side note. So to go back to the kind of summary of this story, I honestly think this one thing is enough for anyone to know.
Yeah.
Muhammad was making it up as he went along.
One of the things I want to point out is like the use of a supernatural posthumous of words, as in like after dying, you will get what you want. So like, oh, like, yeah, you know, like your wife cheated on you, we won't flog you or anything. But you know, like if you lied and you've testified against her 5 times, we will make sure that Allah's curse in the hereafter will be upon you, right? So this using the posthumous card of supernatural reward in the afterlife is so overused and exploited, where any problem you have, oh, it doesn't make sense, oh, this guy's getting like less than what he deserves, you'll get more in the hereafter, don't worry, Allah will compensate you. And the guy is supposed to just keep silent and just go along, right? Anyways, let's keep going.
Should we take the questions now?
Yeah, sure, let's take some questions.
Okay. All right, Omar. Hi, Omar.
Hello, Omar.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to show my appreciation to both of you for keeping the light of questioning Islam in a very productive and a very kind way, despite the attempts by both mainstream Muslims and social media platforms to shut you both up and try to ban you. I'm just glad that you guys are still keeping cool heads and still being polite to others. So just thanks for doing that. My question to you is, to both of you really, is where do you both see Islam in the next 50 years? And I just want to give you my answer to that, my idea. It's really, it was Yasir Qadhi who pointed out that the academic analysis of Islam has, in the West, has come leaps and bounds in the last 50 to 100 years. And really in the East, with the scholars of Islam, that really hasn't been any sort of advancement. Things haven't really changed. They haven't really modernized. And the most recent example of this was the question on the preservation of the Quran. And I think Abdullah Gondal, you were part of that thread. That was by I think Dr. Marjan Puttan. He's a PhD, I believe, and he was looking into the variants of the Quran, and it was quite a fascinating thread. I would recommend any of your viewers also to look at that if they want an introduction into Quranic variants in Aruf. What was especially interesting was to see the sort of panic from the Muslim apologists who looked at that thread, who responded to that thread. Instead of trying to answer the questions, they were trying to, begging him, or was pleading to him to get around the subject and so on. So I think the reason why this is such a critical point is Muslim apologists, they use the Quranic preservation as one of their final claims, that it hasn't really been criticized before, it hasn't really been examined, even though the variants go back, they've been discussed in Islamic circles for centuries. It hasn't had actually undergone any mainstream examination until really now. And it's such a critical point because, for example, the other claims made by Islam, such as scientific miracles, have been debunked. The prophecies have been mostly debunked or questioned as well. So really, what Muslims had left, or Islam had left, is really the preservation. And we get always hit. Oh well, look, the Quran has always been preserved since the beginning, again and again and again. So I think what the problem is, and going back to my question, is that this lack of academic analysis in the East by these scholars is a big problem, and they've always dismissed it, and they buried their heads in the sands. And the problem is, it's going to come and bite them back in the backside, because you can only bury it for so long before your own population. I mean, Muslims are now becoming more and more educated, and these questions need answers now, because we now live in such a globalized society where anything's available on YouTube or on social media, and these questions aren't being answered. So I think over the next 50 years, and you're already seeing splits already, and people not just gradually not as published on the YouTube video by the ex-Muslims of America, that 25% of Muslims have already are leaving Islam every so often. So I think we are going to see a bit more of that. I think what you're seeing that in Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and I think that's going to become more and more the center of Islam. You're seeing some strange liberalization in the Arab countries, but you're going to see, I think, also in Indonesia, you're going to see a lot of changes as well, because they have a young population that is also engineers, doctors, and so on. And these questions will become more and more problematic for them. That's my say, anyway. I don't know what you want to say.
What I feel about where Islam would be in the next 50 years. I'll be very realistic. I don't believe that Islam's going to vanish overnight, like some people want it to. And that could be atheists and ex-Muslims. They have their own reasons for that. I don't agree that that's the right approach, because it's very utopic. It doesn't. History has told us over time and time again that religions don't end up overnight or in short span. They normally go through phases of reform, and it takes a lot. So, like, for example, the Quran preservation, right? Muslims, like you said, have been claiming that it's been preserved letter, dot to dot, word for word. Maududi claimed this. I mean, I have a video of Muhammad Hijab from 5 years ago claiming the exact dot to dot, tashkil thing. But what happened, like with the Bible, they used to do the same thing. It's preserved perfectly, but then the preservation of manuscripts were found, and the thing was changed to, oh, there are variants, but the meaning isn't affected. So initially, although I totally agree the Quran is way better preserved than the Bible in that sense, but the argument is now devolving into that now. So like I said, as soon as you can deconstruct that it's a literal speech of God, if you can make it into an inspired speech of God, then you have more flexibility and room for interpretation, and that will pull the dogma out from under the Quran. For the Quran preservation, I'll like summarize this very quickly because it's off topic, is you see problems in every step of the way. It's anything but miraculous. Muhammad's time missing verses, Muhammad would forget verses, abrogations and whatnot. Sahaba's time fighting companion codices and burning the Qurans. Manuscripts have tons of, well, the Sana Palms, not tons of them, but a lot of variants in the lower text. Some of them in the upper text too. A lot of correction in these pages as well. And then we come to the post-Osmanic, after the Uthman standard of the Quran, you see, again, textual variants. In about 51, you can only find between Warsh and just the Hafs Quran. So keeping in that in mind, it seems like it's more likely that this is a very well-done human preservation, but not a miraculous preservation done by a God. It's definitely well done compared to the Bible, but it does have its flaws as well. It's not perfect. That's my 2 cents on it. So...
Yeah. Thanks for your call, Omar. Okay, so going to the next. Oh, by the way, before we take the next caller, please do consider giving a super chat to donate to the channel and to support this stream. Eventually, we're going to create a new channel for this, and it's going to be its standalone project. It's a joint partnership between Abdullah, Gondal, and myself. But for now, you can support us using super chats. They are most appreciated. We don't have a specific link or anything else other than general support for the channel, which always helps as well. Now, next caller. Thank you, Omar, for your call. Our next caller is Jay. Hey, Jay, how's it going?
Oh, Jay.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi, can you hear me properly?
Absolutely.
That's good then.
Yes.
Okay, by the way, you probably might be hearing cars go by. I'm kind of on the streets at the moment.
No worries. Can you introduce yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, so I want to keep my anonymity, right? Keep myself anonymous. But basically, I'm a Muslim from the UK.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
keep going. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to know, essentially, is this just us asking you questions, or is it you just want to have a talk about Hudood in general?
It's you go ahead with whatever you want to say, and we'll respond to it. If you want to make a comment or you have a question, what would you like to say?
Just about the last person who says that Muslims have been, or who sort of tries to bring a sort of conspiracy theory of Muslims hiding something, which then at the same time contradict themselves, saying that they've been discussing it for thousands of years. So that's kind of a bit strange. Then he's saying that Muslims are getting a lot more smart, as if the first Muslims who knew about these variant readings of the Quran weren't themselves smart. So it's a bit of a strange comment from, well, a strange off comment sort of call from that other person. But when it comes to Hudood, by the way, I missed some of what you were saying about Hudood. I was trying to get myself logged into this sort of stream thing. But I just wanted to know, and I had a question, what is your problem with, for example, lashing people?
So we will actually go right to it. We have slides.
Yeah.
Perfect timing for a question. We have slides prepared from studies.
Yeah, I might have missed some slides, but it's been
no, we haven't gotten to them yet.
We didn't get to it yet.
The next slide is these, where we'll talk about how physical punishment, capital punishment is actually bad and has a bad psychological effect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we'll get to it, but very good question. Regarding the Quran preservation, I'll just comment on it. We know that Muslims have known this, and it's not a conspiracy or like we've discovered these variants. That's not the point at all. The point is, and I'll tell you what happened, is did we have the Sana manuscript before or for all those thousands of years? No. The problem is we found it in the 70s or 80s, and before this, we had narrations of these codices of companions existing with staggering variations, okay? And these variants, like Kitab al-Masahib, they make huge claims. And then there was these narration debates between Shia and Sunni about the tahrif of the Quran. The point isn't that we didn't know about it. The point is we found out new evidence that brings into question the standard Sunni narrative. It's not that the scholars haven't known about it or addressed that. It's that their explanations are inadequate. Just to give you an idea, what is the ahruf? You know, there's 41 different opinions about it. Muslims are not sure what the ahruf are. Okay, then you ask, okay, well, the hadith says saba ahruf, like 7. Okay, well, does 7 imply actual 7 readings, or does the 7 use for multiplicity? Because 7 is in the Arabic language, 70 and 707 is used to show multiplicity, not the exact number. But then how many qiraat do you have? Do you have 7 qiraat? You have 10 qiraat? You have 14 qiraat? You have up to 36. I have 14 on my computer. Then you ask, okay, well, the ahruf, do they encompass the companion codices, which Abdullah bin Masud had and whatnot, but they were lost? Or do they only encompass the post-Osmanic variants that we found in the Rivayas, right? So when you start thinking about it, it doesn't make sense. So if you say the companion codices were also revealed by Allah and were part of the Quran, but they were lost and only Uthmanic readings survived, then you're also implying that only 1 ahruf survived and the 6 of them got lost. You know?
According to Yasir Qadhi, they're all jumbled up.
Exactly. So once you start thinking about it and then you actually analyze the evidence and depth of variation in the manuscripts, you realize that every step of the way there's a problem. The problem isn't that we're bringing anything new. Muslims knew about it. Just because you know something does not mean you cannot criticize the possessor of that knowledge for his explanation about it, right? In the end, that's the whole thing. Like I said, I won't give name, but academics have pointed out that you can trace the Quran to the reciters, like Hafs and Asim, Nafi, Warsh and stuff. But before that, to the mouth of the Prophet is an article of faith. And before Osman, the preservation of the Quran is more and more of a mess and more holes in the narrative than post-Osmanic as well. Anyways, I hope that kind of explained you the question.
Yeah,
definitely.
Jay, you can call back after we get to that section if you want to follow up with an explanation of why flogging is bad. We will
I could probably do so. But one question then with regards to flogging itself. Would you rather be flogged 100 times or be in prison in Guantanamo Bay for like 2 years or 1 year.
We'll get to that. Let's get to that.
Okay,
let's get to that.
Just one thing I want to do just before you go is we don't need to create these dichotomies, okay? It's not that either flogging or either jail. There's a huge spectrum of in between things where you can therapies, and there's so much more we can do. And there are systems in the world in place where there is no prison system at all. In fact, there's rehabilitation centers and whatnot. So these dichotomies that people create, like it's happened in the debate with like, would you something around like, would you get flogged or have or kill the rapist? Something like that happened with the Apostle Prophet as well. And like I said, these things happen because of these false dichotomies. It's not just one thing or the other, right? And apart from it, like I'm saying, like in certain obscure situations and in the context of 7th century Arabia, you can say, okay, flogging made sense because back then they didn't even have the resources to give rehabilitation to people or therapies or imprison people, right? So there's also a lot of it depends on the socio-political context of society at the time. We will talk about this in detail when we come to amputation as well. But let's go on to the next slide because I think
so we're gonna have to take a break on the calls for now, guys. We're lined up. Ziad and the other guys, apologize for that, but we have a lot more actually slides to go through. We don't want people. We want to cover the material for the questions, right? Before we get to more calls. So thank you for your call, Jay. We'll get back to you about the prison. Call back again if you need to. And I just want to highlight this comment by Kevin Robinson. I think the technology to explore the lower palimpsest writing is only more recently available. That is a very good point.
Very good point. Yeah,
and I want to add one more thing that even with Hadith scholars, modern, what they call Orientalist scholars have come up with much better ways of analyzing the text. For example, Isnad Man Katam. Isnad Kam Matan analysis is considered one of the best ways of figuring out whether hadith is true or not. And modern scholars, meaning academics, non-Muslims who have no skin in the game in the sense of they don't care if it's true or false, they just want to unearth the evidence, are actually doing, a more, let's call it, independent research compared to what like Bukhari would have done, and where they put a lot of weight onto testimonies. Oh, this guy's reliable, this guy's trustworthy. Modern scholars don't even look at whether they're trustworthy or not. They look at other things. They look at whether these, so without getting into that, definitely modern academia has done a lot that ancient scholars haven't done. We're not saying it's a conspiracy. Oh, we found these things and we're like exposing Islam. No, all we want to do is we want to bring academia into the forefront. We want to make it like, we want people to know what academics are saying. That's all, right? Imagine when Putin and Sean Anthony and these guys are doing amazing work on like bringing, historical Islam into light. So
give a shout out to Dr. Mohsen as well, and Benghazi. They were I think one of the first ones to analyze the lower text of the Sana, and their paper was Sana 1 and the origins of the Quran. And one other thing they did was they also took the lower text of the Sana Quran and they compared it to the narrations reported in these books like Kitab al-Masahif as companion codices, and they were able to match the lower text variants with variants reported in Hadith narrations. So that shows that yes, they were definitely codices that differed a lot, and they existed, and that's why one of the reasons Osman had to burn them.
So I'm just going to take one more call because this guy was waiting for a while.
Yeah,
it's related to the same topic.
Okay.
Ziad, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm a Muslim from the US. And my question is, why did, more specifically to Gondal, but why did you lie about the Quran making up words?
Okay, so I'll comment on this actually. I don't know if, so the whole stream was 2 hours something long, okay? And if you were to go to my profile, I made a whole tweet about this where I did this also in Urdu. And the guy who made the video, Halabi, he literally hit about 4 minutes of my video where I'm showing page 39 of Arthur Jeffrey's book. And also in the Urdu stream, I showed that page again. And what's also, he omitted 4 minutes of my video to make a strawman argument that was, oh, can pre-Islamic poets copy, and they're eloquent, but the Quran can't. And he was missing the whole point, that the argument wasn't that the it's about if pre-Islamic poets can copy words, or it's about the inherent subjectivity of language. Let's just simplify it as that. If you accuse me to copy some linguistic devices from the Quran and say I'm plagiarizing, well, I can fire that back onto you and say that the Quran plagiarizes from many parts of pre-Islamic poetry, and I'll tell you, chiastic structures, those things that did not show in the video. Surah Sharik, what is the response? It did not show it in the video. It was a very, very bad misrepresentation on my part, what they did. Also, in the Urdu stream, if you go to page 39, you will see Salsabil and Zanjabil, and they're separated and they're explained. The guy omitted the part of the stream where I'm showing this. And for simplicity's sake, I said, I don't want to confuse the readers, and I go on from there. And this difference is shown again in my Urdu stream, but obviously they didn't show that part because they refused their point. Again, I can keep going like this. This isn't just Arthur Jeffrey. He actually ended up making a point that Arthur Jeffrey is this polemicist dude. You read Arthur Jeffrey's book, you'll realize that he's quoting Suyuti, he's quoting Muslim exegetes Tabari in his book. And it's not a secret that books like Suyuti's Itqan have these foreign words in them already. It's a known thing. Hundreds of years before Arthur Jeffrey wrote this, Suyuti has a whole book on it, which he has more than 100 words that he claims to be of foreign origin. Okay, and the argument is, it still stays. If I say it's a foreign word, and if I say it's a borrowed word, the argument isn't affected, because what I'm trying to say is that the inherent subjectivity of language is still popping up here. That was the point, and that's why I feel like it was such a bad misrepresentation in how they were snipping things out that I wrote a post on it. I can link it to you later if you want to go. You can look at the live stream and you'll see how much omission and how much what they did.
Yeah, I have to agree that when they're making response videos, certain people, I'm not going to mention the names, they tend to really not take the best arguments we're making. They tend to take the weakest arguments and then poke holes in that and say, look, we debunked everything they said. Frankly speaking, like, the same guy that was, made a video about Dhul Qarnayn where he poked holes in what I said about the Muslim scholars who thought Dhul Qarnayn was Alexander the Great, and the references were bad. I actually removed that 2-minute segment from my video. I removed it. Out of 15 minutes, it was 2 minutes where I talked about Muslim scholars on Dhul Qarnayn. I'm like, okay, you know what? It's not a strong point. I'll just remove it. I deleted that part. So I admitted it's not a good point. The rest of the video, which had so much historical evidence, including from scholars like Sean Anthony, experts in the field, who have conclusively determined that Dhul Qarnayn is Alexander the Great, he didn't even address that. Or like in this other video we made about pre-Islamic poetry, he made a whole video arguing, well, they called it pre-Islamic poetry instead of pre-Islamic and Islamic era poetry. Like, making a whole video on the title of my video is so stupid. Like, this is nitpicking, cherry picking at its finest. So we actually don't think it's worth the time in some cases to really even bother making a response video to response video, because we feel the arguments are strong enough and they stand up as is. So
I just want to give one closing thing on this is the whole point. So he made about 3-4 videos on us, and during those he kept purposefully snipping my argument out.
Yeah,
it was to the point where he would snip the argument out just for the intentional purpose so he can make a straw man argument. Okay, I would spend 3 minutes explaining how the inherent subjectivity of language renders this challenge nonsensical, and he would just skip that and keep going on. Then I don't want to get into more with this. This is off topic, but like I said, you can watch the video. You will see that.
Yeah, so we really need to get back to the stream. So I'm just gonna
Yeah,
stop.
but one thing is, Gondal, he's clearly said that the Quran made up the words.
Yeah, it did.
And Sanskrit. No, it didn't. He even showed 2 pre-Islamic poets who used the word. So how did the Quran make it up?
Okay. Here's the thing. Samir, can you open page 39 of Arthur Jeffrey's book? Okay. He showed you Zanjabil, but he didn't show you Salsabil. And he didn't show you the part of the video where I show that these are distinct. One is foreign, one is made up. But then for the simplicity of the argument, I keep going with it.
You said they were both made up.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. It was for the simplicity of the argument. You can see here. If you go down, it's page 39 and not 16.
This is 39, right? Oh shit. Sorry. It's 39 in the PDF, not sorry, my bad. 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Sometimes he seems to have invented words such as ghassak, tasneem, salsabil, and then words that are entirely non-Arabic, so zanjabil, istabrak. I showed this and I talked about this specific page for a few minutes. He cut that part of the video out because obviously it refutes his point. I would like to stop with this because it goes further on. I did explain this. Here's the thing. I did explain this in even more detail in my Urdu stream. What I want to tell you is they went back to make memes of me from my streams 2 years ago, but they didn't watch the Urdu stream that was done a month or a few weeks after. And that's what I'm trying to show you, that the whole point of these guys is not to look for truth. They're purposefully hiding parts of the stream so they can make these points and arguments.
Yeah, but the words are just foreign.
Sorry. So, okay, we really need to get back to the topic at hand. This is way off topic now.
Yeah.
Ziad, thanks for your call, and we'll get back.
Seems like you guys are uncomfortable discussing this.
You know what?
No, I'm not. I'm actually showing you. I'm telling you, there's a 2.5-hour stream, okay? And he omitted huge chunks.
So
he
even
omitted
with
examples. Anyway, this is side topic. We'll get to it later.
We can I wish you would have called last week because this was a topic
we were talking about
doing on the Kirat and the problems with the but yeah, we do want to get back to the slides, so I want to continue before we take any more calls. Is capital punishment helpful? So I looked up and tried to find some data on whether capital punishment actually is a deterrent, whether it actually reduces crime, whether it is effective at what it says it is supposed to be for. And what I found, and this is basically very recent data, and obviously this is not from 7th century. This is modern data. We're living in the modern world, and this is from America. This is like the latest evidence that we have, the latest information that we have. And these guys are the New York City Bar Association. So a bar association is basically a professional association of lawyers that comes together and they actually wanted to make a presentation on this because they felt that this was not actually helping, right? And what they found was, looking at US murder data from 1987 until 2015, they found no evidence that the death penalty deters murder or protects police. Basically, what they found, I'm going to go to the next slide. Nations that abolish the death penalty, they tend to see the murder rates decline. Okay, now this is now not just US based. This is Azerbaijan, Bulgaria, Poland, Serbia, Estonia, Latvia, South Africa, Kyrgyzstan, Georgia, Albania. You can see that the murder rates have been dropping all over the world anyways. We don't like capital punishment is not keeping people from murdering others, right? And there's more to, I don't know. Okay, but basically the problem with capital punishment and the problem with some of these things that we're doing is they don't take into account a full picture of human psychology. They don't take into the fact take into the fact that people are complicated beings, that we do things for reasons we cannot fathom. We are basically machines that produce actions based on code and inputs, right? If we want to punish people, it shouldn't be for the sake of punishing them, but for the sake of deterrence, reform, and protection. So we're going to get more into that. I think we actually get, okay, so I do talk about this a little bit more. One of the previous callers actually had a question about this where he said, flogging, why shouldn't we flog people? And the fact is, if you ask most people actually love their spouses. Maybe in a moment of anger when they find out the wife is cheating or the husband is cheating or the girlfriend or whatever, they do want to kill them. But like after that rage has subsided, I'd say most people wouldn't want to kill. Would you want to kill your spouse for cheating on you? The mother of your children? Like, would you want to take away the mother? Would you want to take away the father just because he's a bad guy or he's immoral or he made a mistake? He did something unjustifiable, let's say, dishonest, sleazy, whatever. He did something he shouldn't have done or she shouldn't have done. Would you want to kill them? I personally think no. And I read this book called After the Affair by Janice Spring, PhD. And this individual actually worked with couples. This whole book is about working with couples to heal the trauma. And what he found is that in many cases, either the husband or the wife had suffered from sexual abuse, a distant parent, or other types of unhealthy attachment or emotional abuse or abandonment. When they sat down and dealt with the past with the help of a therapist, they found their relationship was better after the adultery that happened than before it was. Should they have been stoned to death for the crime? Of course not. Like we are civilized people. We can deal with these things without murder. There's no need to murder people. Especially, I mean, we're not even talking about now for actually crimes that most people would, some people would actually argue, well, for murder, maybe they should be killed. But for adultery, really? I mean, this is so out of date and so ridiculous. It doesn't solve anything. It just creates more problems. In Sweden, they've taken an even stronger approach on this, and they're saying that they did a national client survey of several thousand Swedish prisoners to identify the issues that have affected the criminal behavior. What they found was nothing surprising, as they said, confirmation that what they know from experience, that it's not just one problem, but usually two or more, sometimes as much as 7 or 8 different problems, including perhaps drugs, alcohol, psychiatric problems, things that have developed over the years. The reasons that people do crime is something that sometimes a lifetime of bad decisions. And you don't just kill those people. You should help them. You should get them to be in a situation where they become the best role models of society. And if they're truly psychotic or, the truly deranged individuals that cannot be fixed, there's no drug that can help them, there's no therapy that can help them, then you keep them away from society so they don't harm others. Simple. There's no point even punishing those people because they don't get it. Punishment's not going to do anything anyways, which is, if you extend this out into the idea of hell, the truly crazy people that are like their brain is broken, either they have something wrong with the brain, or they were abused as a child and so badly that they now become sexual abusers themselves or serial rapists. You can never fix those people. So why would you punish them in hell for something that happened to them that broke their brain, that caused them to behave this way, when it's not even their fault in the first place? They were abused themselves. So either you keep those people away from society, or there's no point like punishing them, right? You know what I'm saying? Because it's not going to do anything.
One of the things I want to point out here is our understanding of criminal justice for mostly all of our human history has been very ignorant of how the human brain works. And I'll just give you a very simplified explanation from a neuroscience perspective. And this also will talk about free will as well. The point being is that when, for example, you're having a stress response, right? What ends up happening is your midbrain takes control, and just to simplify, norepinephrine shuts down your frontal cortex. The point for this is that if you see a bear running at you, the prefrontal cortex will start thinking and analyzing. But you do not need that, because if you start thinking and analyzing, you will die. So the midbrain has these inherent, what you call survival instinct networks ready to get triggered. As soon as they get triggered, the prefrontal cortex almost shuts down in a sense, and your midbrain fight or flight response takes control. Now, if somebody during that stress response does something, they're not fully in control, involved, or let's say they don't have their rational faculties fully available to them because of the stress response, right? So should they be punished, right? So here's another thing. Neuroscience, like I said, this is a way more deeper topic than religious people realize. For example, take brain traumatic injury, right? If you damage the brain in the right spot in temporal lobes, you can turn somebody into a pedophile. Okay? I'm not defending pedophilia here, but I'm just giving you a thought process to think about this in a different way. Is it that person's fault? Or is it the brain damage causing it? Then there's another whole argument of like free will and whatnot in criminal justice. So in an essence, like I'm saying, we are moving in a direction so different from our history, and with modern technology and neuroscience, that to keep viewing morality as a stuck in time lens from a 7th century view becomes absurd. It actually becomes absurd. Anyways, what I wanted to chime in on that with a little bit of neuroscience and how criminality and stress responses might go into that.
Perfect.
All right.
Let's take one more call, and before we get to the next slide, because we go to a slightly different theme next. AX, hey, how's it going? Hello, AX. AX.
Hi there.
Hi. Hey.
Hi.
Hey there. Yeah, so just a couple of points that I was thinking about, and I think, Samir, you've outlined them really well, and Gondal's has provided a great classification there as well. Just a couple of points that I wanted to add to this were with terms of developing thought on punitive sort of measures to combat crime, and increasingly we've seen that is not successful. And if you look at the thoughts development in terms of criminology, they're taking what's known as a semiological approach, semiological with a Z or a Z if you're North American. So the idea there is the quantification of harm, and that particular aspect seems to be an ongoing thing with the idea of, say, for example, if somebody poisons somebody else, you consider that as a murder, whereas if an institution or a factory is pumping pollutants out into a stream and then lots of people get poisoned by that, who gets the blame? So there is this idea of harm, very pertinent because of the Black Lives Matter movement happening just now as well. That also the point that Gondal made about, I think there's been a number of people who have encountered brain damage or tumors that have made them periodically pedophiles. And one individual that I'm aware of who had operations done on the brain was cured of pedophilia. Then the malignancy came back and he developed pedophilia again. So the malignant tumor was not once but twice verified to be the cause of this. And then you put this person into a prison because they quote unquote decided to be pedophiles. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Also the idea of everlasting punishment, them burning in hell because they developed a tumor, doesn't make any sense either. So that was one couple of points. The other was just in curiosity, and this is purely speculation on my part, but I was just wondering, a lot of this tends to go back to Yasir Qadhi and his, let's say, faux pas that have happened. But I was just wondering if there was any sort of, I noticed he was quite named quite a bit in a lot of the WikiLeaks email releases as being sort of motivating a more of a contained and touchy-feely idea of Salafism coming out. I don't know if that was, something that had been verified, but it certainly seemed to be that he was an active candidate for recruitment there. Could it possibly, in your view, be an indication of calming those views down?
I want to talk about that. I find it hilarious that people are using, Muslims are using Yasir Qadhi WikiLeaks thing as if there's some big conspiracy going on. Yasir Qadhi is an exemplary imam that is working with the American government to de-radicalize or to work against terrorist activities in America. It's a perfect thing for an imam to do. This is what you want your imams to do. You want your imams to not, because you guys, man, what do you say to people that say Islam is not about terrorism, but then they get mad at the imam who's working with the government to make sure that there's no Muslims involved in terrorist activities in American and on American soil? An imam that is helping young people to say, no, ISIS and blah, blah, blah is nothing to do with Islam. Of course, I don't agree with his thing totally, but I don't care. He thinks Islam has nothing to do with ISIS. That's a good thing. And he's telling other young people, don't go down this path. what kind of idiot Muslim wants him to not do that? I mean, I'm sorry, but I can't. I have no pity for people that are trying to slander him by saying that he's working with the government. Well, what the like? You guys living in America, you should be working with the government. It's your government. Who do you think you are? Like, are you going to be foreigners your whole life? Are you going to continue seeing this us versus them? Like, oh, you guys are evil kuffar and we are Muslims and we should not help you in anything, or you are betraying the Muslims by working with. What the hell? This is your government. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's disappointing. Do you have anything to add to that, Gondal?
No, not really. I mean, you said almost all the things. Maybe one thing I might add is the whole idea of saying does ISIS have any relevancy to Islamic law and whatnot, right? So one point is I'm not saying, or people don't say that ISIS is the only interpretation of Islam. In fact, I don't say that myself either. What I do say is many things that ISIS does, like stoning, chopping hands, beheading them, whatnot, can be traced back to Islamic literature. And the problem is, if you go to a people and ask them what their motivation is, and they tell you it's the religion and they're doing that, and then you say, no, it's not that. I'm like, the point is, these people are getting their motivation and sources from the Islamic text. And the point is just that it can be traced back to the text. It's not saying Islam is the only interpretation of ISIS is the only interpretation of Islam. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, it's almost you try to defend Muslims by working with governments to show Muslims they're not terrorists, but then Muslims will turn around and tell you you're working for Yehudi agents or ISIS or Mossad or something, and it's so weird. They're not ISIS, like raw Indian agents and stuff. It's always like, and I feel it emerges from the Muslim community being split into too many factions and sects, where there's the modern liberal Muslims that are more rational, but then there's the Salafi hardliners who will pull you down if you don't stick to the literalistic approach. So yeah, you'll see a bunch like this people supporting Qadi in the West, but then the Wahhabis in the Middle East might be going nuts over him, saying that, oh, Hudood are problematic, astaghfirullah, he's a takfirna, like kafir or something.
It's I do feel there's a really big problem with Islam in general, and it's this whole us versus them ideology of, kuffar versus non-kuffar, seeing the world in us versus them. I think that is a source of many problems, because many Muslims, and me included, I had a friend that was like this as well, that was really angry at Yasir Qadhi for working with the American government and supporting, being against terrorism, because, and there's even sympathy for like what didn't Imran Khan just tweet something about Osama bin Laden?
Yeah, Imran Khan was in the Pakistani parliament and he called Osama bin Laden a martyr. He actually first said he was killed, but then he, in the next few seconds, corrected himself to say martyr. That's the point. That's the problem. It wasn't an accident. He changed it to the martyr. It's messed up.
So I mean, there's definitely a lot of there's a lot of sympathy. Even I don't know if there's a lot. There is some sympathy for. Anyways, I don't even want to go into that. But yeah, any more? Does that cover what you were asking, Ax?
You covered it brilliantly. Just one final thing that you had mentioned about ISIS. I've some of the criticisms that you usually see, and these are not sort of made up criticisms, was the bulking of Western Muslims in terms of what ISIS is doing, and the immediate claim through a lot of them, the exasperation that no Muslim can possibly do this. And when you look at the justifications that ISIS presents, the difficulty that, certainly from an outsider's point of view, seems to be that ISIS has a very good reasoning ability. First language, they quote the Quran quite well, they quote Hadith, they quote incidences in the past. If anything, it's usually the Muslims in the West who are left struggling, trying to find some sort of backing for a modification of their view. Do you find that to be the case as well?
I see a comment that just popped up. It says many Muslims believe ISIS was created by the CIA and Israel simply to make Islam look bad. Well, I'll say we don't even need ISIS to make Islam look bad, because the slides that are coming are gonna be enough.
Yeah, and honestly, at the end of the day, this is a problem. I'm gonna plug a book called The Way of Strangers by Graham Wood. He's an award-winning journalist. He has spoken. He has interviewed a bunch of jihadis, including like ex-Taliban, ex-Al Qaeda, ISIS. He has got into their minds like nobody else. Graham Wood has written such a beautiful book that it was an enjoyable read as an ex-Muslim, or even I think anyone you will see how knowledgeable he is on Islam. And
What I loved about that book was he asked them questions that brings forth their mentality and their approach, how they think. That pops up in front of you in the jihadi mentality. And that's a very big takeaway from that book. It's very good insight into their mind.
it's a beautiful book. And one of the best parts in the book is when he questions Yasir Qadhi and Hamza Yusuf about how ISIS isn't Islamic. I'm not going to tell you what came. It was amazing. It was just beautiful. Guys, get the book. It's a beautiful book. It's worth reading. This guy is an award-winning journalist. He did an incredible job, in my opinion.
All right.
Can we get back to the topic or more questions?
Let's go to the slides, and then what we'll do is we'll talk about one aspect of Hadith, like stoning, and then we'll take questions after that, and then we'll take another aspect of amputations after that, right?
Okay, so I thought this was an interesting example. I'm not going to go into this too much but basically there's a verse in the Quran that says, "And those who accuse chaste women." The hilarious thing is that Sunni scholars say this includes men as well. Now, to me, this is a very hilarious problem with Islam, where the Quran is not mentioning and those people and those who accuse chaste individuals. It specifically says women, right? Somehow, in order to solve this problem of what about men? What about men were accused? Well, the scholars say, well, no, this includes everybody. This is Quranic eloquence at its best, or Islamic scholars
precision of language. Where's the variant that says the men ahruf men?
It's so funny that either this is a hole in the Quran because it's only defending Muslim women, or Muslim men somehow are included in women. Now that doesn't make any sense. Normally, when you say in English, "Hey, you guys," you're including men and women both. But you never say, "Hey, ladies," and you're including women. Hey, ladies, what? Me?
Well, normally the Quran says "anas" to refer to mankind, and it includes both, and that still is mankind. Anyway,
exactly.
People, or people, right? You can say that. All right, let's get to the juicy bits. So, what we want to get to now is: did Muhammad stone anyone to death? So, on the left side, we see that there were two people. There are two Jews, I believe. He said, "Oh, sorry." So this left one is talking about a slave girl. Anyways, it says that I asked religious learned people about it. I will judge you according to the law of Allah, as Rashid returned to you and flogged 100 stripes and exiled for 1 year. Then he ordered Onas al-Aslami to go to the wife of the other man, and if she confessed, stone her to death. She confessed and was stoned to death. So here's we have our first example of Muhammad ordering somebody to stone somebody to death. And now what we remember what Qadi said, that these were never implemented. They're not supposed to be very shady. They're just supposed to scare you. Oh, look to your right. The messenger of Allah stoned a man from Bani Aslam. We will talk about that. A Jewish man and a woman. There was three. And then there's a fourth pregnant woman he stoned as well. I think there's two pregnant women, but we'll limit it to one to show the point. Let's go to the next slide. All right, now we're going to check, did the companions stone anybody to death? So on the left side, you see from Jami' Tirmizi, Umar ibn Khattab says, the messenger of Allah stoned to death. Abu Bakr stoned to death. I stoned to death. If I didn't dislike that, I add to the book of Allah. He would have added the verse back in that was abrogated. He was so adamant on making sure the stoning isn't lost, like it's important. And he says, people might forget about it and they will disbelieve it. Now, on the right side, we see narrated as I think should be from Ali when the latter stoned a lady to death on a Friday. Ali said, I have stoned her according to the tradition of Allah's messenger. So we have Muhammad stoning, Abu Bakr stoned, Omar stoned, Ali stoned. Anyways, the point here is being highlighted that these aren't anomalies and these aren't just to scare people off. They actually do get implemented. And it's not just once. The hadiths have a lot of instances. Let's go forward and see what's up. Now, here's the interesting one. Now, the psychology is so messed up in this. Let's read the left one on the left. So, a man from the tribe of Aslam came to the Prophet and confessed he had committed illegal sexual intercourse. The Prophet turned his face away from him till the man told him 4 times, "Yeah, I did commit it." The Prophet, are you mad? Like, no. Like, are you married? Yeah. It's like, well, you gotta get stoned to death.
Are you mad? Like, is that how you find out if someone's mad? Hey, are you crazy? I'm crazy. Like, I'm just gonna answer that question with yes. Does anyone ever say yes, I'm crazy?
But what's staggering is like the Prophet ordered him to be stoned, and he was stoned at the musalla. They're doing it in the musalla on the mosque.
Jeez.
Okay, but then the stones hit him and he ran away. The poor guy, obviously. So this is what you need to understand. You're telling me that this guy knowingly goes to Muhammad, that he knows he's gonna get stoned to death. Once he has the punishment announced upon him and the stoning commences, the poor guy tries to run away. And you guys grab him and finish him off. See the discrepancy between the starting of the hadith and how his life ended. Did he actually want to get stoned? It's so bizarre. And all right, let's go to the next one.
Yep.
This is very, very bad. Okay, so the woman of Ghamid came to the Prophet and said, "I've committed fornication." He said, "Go back." Then she came back again. And then she says, "Perhaps you want to send me back as you did Ma'az bin Malik," the same guy we were just talking about in the hadith on the left. And she swears that I'm pregnant. And she came back to him the next day. He said, "Come back after you've given the birth to the child." She gave birth to the child. She came back. She's like, "Okay, I've given birth. Now what?" He's like, "Go back and suckle him for like at least 2 years," I would assume. When she had weaned him, she brought the boy back. Okay. The boy was given to a certain man of the Muslim, and the Prophet commanded regarding her. So a pit was dug for her, and he gave orders about her, and she was stoned to death. Now, think about this. Lady gets pregnant, lady has a baby. You kill the mom. What's the point? You're making the future of the child even worse, because we know how bad orphans are treated in Arabia at that time, right?
Or even in general, like missing your mother. I mean, how are you supposed to make up for that
It's such a psychological.
Yeah, even if Islam says take care of orphans or whatever, I mean, you are by default now behind everybody else because you have no mother. Like the most closest person to you in your life for most people, you have just taken away that child's mother for what? And this was a woman that is, feeling bad about this. Like she's basically feeling sorry for herself, because Islam is teaching her that this is so evil what she did. And it's not enough. I mean, imagine Islam taught her that she can just repent to Allah. Why can't she just repent to Allah? Why does she have to die?
Yeah.
Why does her child, who is totally innocent of this, have to suffer with no parent? And it's just crazy. Yeah, I actually thought there was another hadith that said if someone runs away, then you let them run away. So if they're not bloody to death and they run away, then you just leave them.
No, there's actually hadith to the counter, I think, where some slaves were caught, and there's one hadith actually. This was after the Prophet, where a slave ran away, and I think it's Ibn Sa'd or somebody who said that I do not want to cut the slave's hand because he stole, but that's not inflicted. But then the caliph, where the governor said that yes, he has to have the punishment, and he actually forced the person to chop the slave's hand off despite him having run away. So I don't know.
Yeah. So let's go to the next slide.
Well, there's this one thing I need to finish here. Is Khalid bin Walid, the biggest champion of Allah, was one of those who were throwing stones at her. So this guy's throwing stones at a lady buried waist deep in the ground. He threw a stone at her when a drop of blood fell on his cheeks. So he threw a stone, and it seems like the blood came from the woman and fell on his cheek, Khalid's cheek. And he abused her. So the Prophet said, this is so mindfuck. Gently, Khalid. What the fuck? You're stoning the person to death, and then you're telling him, be gentle, Khalid.
That's so messed up, man.
And then it's like, by him in whose hand my soul that she's reported to, I think it's repented to such an extent that if one who wrongly takes extra tax were to repent a like extent, he would be forgiven.
Yeah, apparently taking extra taxes. He's saying, I think he's talking about stealing the zakat. So apparently that's the most horrible thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. This is like, I don't think we even need to say anything. This is so
It's self-explanatory. The mind fucking here is okay. Anyways, keep
it's
going.
so messed up. When I made one of my first videos about stoning adulterers, I actually started crying when I read this. I was
Oh yeah, it's hard.
It's so messed up, man. It's so messed up. Like, and you know, it's like, you know, Yusuf Estes said something interesting and funny once, which is if you take the best women in your and the best men in your society and you don't let them have kids, what do you think is going to happen? This is the same idea. You're taking the best people who are the most honest and trustworthy, and you're killing them because they made a mistake. How many of us have made mistakes in our lives when we were in the 20s? And the funny thing is, if you're a non-Muslim, you can convert to Islam. You'll be forgiven for all of your sins. But if you're a Muslim and you do this, you have to be killed.
And the thing is, she did ask for repentance. The Prophet said her repentance is accepted, but he still continued to stone her to death.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the thing is, like, a lot of the time, it's about, like I said in my previous stream, it's about not, religious morality sometimes becomes about not incurring the wrath of an omnipotent, omniscient God, and not about the well-being of the society. So there's a huge,
oh yeah,
the goal, what's the point of your moral framework, right?
So we'll go one more slide and then take questions.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
So I think this is pretty funny. This is an issue of like Yasir Qadhi. Yasir Qadhi said this. Oh no, this is all theoretical. This is just to terrorize the Muslims. Okay, dude, how can you terrorize Muslims if you don't implement it? If you can never find 4 witnesses, like practically speaking, according to him and even according to companions, it's almost impossible to find 4 witnesses to penetration. Yeah. So how is it a deterrent? Like, make up your mind. Is this a
deterrent? Like if I'm for example trying to commit adultery and I know that there's no way they're gonna prove it, so might as well just do it anyways, because no way in hell they're gonna find 4 witnesses. So it's, if you tell somebody that this law is in there just to scare you, but it won't be implemented, they will laugh at you. Like, it makes no sense. Deterrents are supposed to be implemented because they're workable deterrent.
Exactly.
Anyways, let's go to the next caller. Hello.
Hey, Sirla, how's it going?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi, sorry about that. I was waiting for you guys.
Your mic is a little bit low. Can you maybe speak a little bit closer to the mic?
Yeah, sorry, I have headbuds in. Can you guys hear me at all?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'll try to speak louder. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys read the chat or not. I wanted to talk about I think it was Quran 33:49.
Okay.
It was the thing that I mentioned. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
Go ahead, no problem.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the screen while you're talking.
All right, yeah, because I wrote it down here in my notes and I'm fumbling through my notes.
Oh, you believe when you marry believing women and then divorce them before you've touched them? There's no waiting.
So I got something very interesting for that.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just find it.
So I don't know if you guys read the chat, but I posted something on a group for atheists, and one of the Muslims who for some reason joined the group, he sent me like a death threat in a private message because I had actually quoted this in the group. He something about Muhammad and child marriage and whatnot. But I just wanted to know from your perspective, how do you argue with someone, or how do you make the point that having sex with kids is allowed in Islam? I thought that this was an ideal example because I know that the Iddah is not applicable if there was no sex, and I can't remember which hadith, but it says that if they're like you're too young to have the menstrual cycle, then there's like a 3-month waiting period for Iddah. And then I also had a question that was actually relevant to your subject matter, but if we don't get to it, that's okay.
So I'm just going to repeat your question because it's hard to hear if I understood it correctly. So you're saying that the Quran in 33:49 says the iddah is only applied if the marriage was consummated, right? But in 60, I think in Surah 65 or 66, it says that you can, the iddah also is for women who haven't menstruated. But with that in mind, I think 65, 2 or 3. Yeah, so when it says, it's 4, 65, 4. Walati, yeah, that's the one. No longer expect menstruation if you're elder. Those who have not menstruated, for those who, yeah. So the point is that if there's prepubescent girls who are having idda, and an idda is only applicable if consummation has happened, does that mean that the Quran implies you can have sex with prepubescent children? That's the question.
Yes.
Now, Whitefield loved this response because this is not even my words. I'm going to show you a Twitter thread I made on this, completely from Islamic scholars, and it's going to be bad. So I can't hear you at all right now.
We can't hear you at all. So maybe you should type it out, the question, because it's very, very difficult to hear you. Maybe take off your headphones or something. But if that's the question that you're asking, yeah,
I can go ahead and answer it. Do you want me to answer it?
I'm not talking. I'm just listening to you guys. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what I'll do is I did a Twitter thread on this. I'll quickly share my screen, and I'll it's from the Islamic sources completely. Okay. And what I want you guys to read here is prepubescent sex. So idda applies if the marriage was consummated per Quran in 3349, like the person asked. It prescribes idda for young girls who haven't menstruated in 65:4. The problem is, like, some people say this is for women who haven't ever had menstruation but are old, but that is not the case, because there's numerous tafsir that categorically say this refers to prepubescents who haven't had their period. Now, what's interesting is, if you look here, what do you see? We have Imam Bukhari. Okay, he's using the verse واللاتي لم يحيض فجعل عدتها 13 قبل البلوغ. Important, the part I've highlighted, قبل البلوغ, means before adolescence, before maturity. And he uses that verse, and then to explain that verse, he uses the Prophet marrying Aisha at 6 and consummating at 9. And he's saying that this is evidence of prepubescent sex, or having at least idda for prepubescent women. It gets worse, okay? This is from, I think, Islam QA. Yeah. So here we say, with regard to idda following, it is obligatory for the woman with whom the marriage is consummated. She's obliged to observe idda. Okay. Yeah. And then it goes to 3349. And then it says, the verse states that no idda is recorded of a woman who's divorced before the marriage is consummated. This is the consensus of the Ummah. Because of this verse, but if she has consummated the marriage with her, then she must observe idda. So that means that this is pointing in the direction that it can be. Now, what's interesting is, let's open some more books, okay? The Quran and Sunnah indicate that marriage of a minor is valid. Listen to this. This is insane. The Quran and the Sunnah indicate that the marriage of a minor, a female who has not yet reached puberty, is valid, and no particular age is stipulated for that.
Yeah, I think Qadi Iyaad doesn't really have an age for consent. Sorry to interrupt.
I can't hear you, but let me finish. I'll show you. We have all of this answered. It goes through the same arguments with regard to virgin. There's no difference of scholarly opinion. All scholars from whom we are unanimously agree that it is permissible for a father to give his minor daughter in marriage. This is like, kids cannot consent. Okay. Anyways, he explains it the same way. The fact that this is permissible to give a minor girl in marriage is indicated by the verse in which Allah exalted says, and those of your women as have passed the age of monthly courses, for them is iddah. So the iddah for one who has not started to menstruate is 3 months, which implies that yes, you can have sex with them, as it says. Aisha said, when I was 6, and this scholar uses the same hadith to say that prepubescent sex with Aisha is okay. This is insane. The Islamic scholars, it is known that at the age she would not be of those whose permission would be taken into account.
So
Go ahead, Samira.
I was gonna say I have a clip from the Master Arab of scholars talking about this. Should I share it? Can I show it? Or do you have to finish?
I just want to show one thing is the book, it's the Reliance of the Traveler, right? And what it says. This is a fiqh manual written by one of the big fiqh people. I think it's some Shafi fiqh. Okay, so it says here, a guardian may not marry his prepubescent daughter to someone for less than the amount typically received as marriage payment by similar brides, nor marry his prepubescent son to a female who is given more than the amount typically. So it's okay to marry your prepubescent child as long as the amount you get is okay. This is straight up from scholars, not me. I'm not making this up. Again, look at this one. A waiting period is obligatory for a woman divorced after intercourse, whether the husband and wife are prepubescent, have reached puberty, or one has and the other has not. This is insane. They're literally admitting that, yeah, prepubescent sex is okay.
Yeah, I have a clip as well I want to share, if you don't mind, on the same topic. I'm just going to mute you.
لا ما هو ربها، لا زوجها أصبح زوجها إذا مات ترثه على أوراق زوجها، لكن هي أنا أتحدث نفسيا يعني رضيعة، يعني إذا مين ما تبناها سواء زوجها أو انظر التشريع الإسلامي. نعم أنا يستطيع أن يتزوج من رضيعة، هذا ما قلته دكتور أحمد. نعم صح، يعني أنا بتكلم عن هذا وبقول يعني نحن مركزين على النقطة دي، لا هذه نقطة جزئية بسيطة جدا. نعم. يعني ولكن أثارت جدل كبير.
وراجل قال لك البنت عندها 9 سنين تعاشر أحسن من عندها 20. واحنا مين مختلفين في سن الزواج ورفع سن الزواج، نرفعه ولا ما نرفعوش؟ الوضع ده ايه؟ 9 سنين تنفع؟
هو الراجل ده بيتكلم كلام. هو اولا ليس هناك في الشرع تحديد لسن الزواج، على طول كده ليس هناك في الشرع تحديد لسن الزواج.
يعني ولكن اللي فهمته كده انك موافق.
نعم.
انت بتأيد الفتوى دي؟
مش بأيد الفتوى دي. ده مش بأيد الفتوى دي.
يعني 9 سنين تنفع؟
أن تحتمل الزوج، يعني تحتمل المعاشرة، تحتمل الزوج، تحتمل
البنت
الزواج.
تحتمل الزواج من عندها كام سنة؟
نعم أنا ما أعرفش بقى. ما هو في عندها هقول لسيادتك الجدات عندها 15 سنة ومقروضة قد كده وما تنفعش الحاجة وما تعرفش حاجة. في واحدة عندها 10 سنين وتلاقيها بسم الله ما شاء الله قد الحيطة مثلا. هي العملية بتتوقف على إيه؟
يعني مش مرتبطة بسن.
لا
مش مرتبط.
الشرع لم
يعني البنت عندها 9 سنين وقد الحيطه تنفع تتجوز؟
ما ينفعش ليه؟
طب اكيد اتصلوا بينا على 91 235. اصل انا مش في مود مناقشتك النهارده فضيله الشيخ. كلام صعب قوي. 9 سنين وتتجوز ده
9 سنين وتتجوز اذا قلت اذا
كانت قد الحيطه
تطيق الفحل، يعني اللي هي بيقول ايوه ما هي في الشرع.
بشكر دكتور ياسر واكثر صراحه من بعض الاعضاء اللي حاولوا يلتفوا حول تفسير موضوع زواج الأطفال الصغيرات، وإن هو كان أكثر صراحة، درجة إن هو قال كمان ما اشترطش سن البلوغ ده، حتى يعني فسر الآية الكريمة لمن لم تحض بعد، يعني ممكن في أي سن إن شاء الله 3 سنين طالما بإمكانها إنها يعني تطيق.
طب إيه تفسيرها عندك يا دكتور؟ معلش أنا عايز تفسير الآية عندك يا دكتور.
ثاني أكمل يا دكتور.
جيبوا لي تفسير عند أي عالم من أهل العلم في الآية. أنا بقول آية من كلام الله.
حضرتك قلت والتي لم تحض.
ما أنا بتكلم على آية مش بتكلم على أنا. ده أنا بقول قال الله.
ما أنا عارفة حضرتك، ما أنا بقول حضرتك.
ما تقولوش تفسير أصل أنا ما فسرتش.
طيب.
ده ربنا اللي بيقول ولا إيه؟ أنتوا معتقدين صحتها ولا مش معتقدين صحتها؟ معتقدين القرآن ولا مش معتقدين القرآن؟
ده معناه في أي سن يا دكتور ياسر، مش شرط كمان سن البلوغ. يعني
أنا بقول لحضرتك أنت مقتنعة بالقرآن ولا لأ؟ Finally, there are a couple.
Okay, yeah, that was it.
I don't have no comments. I'd need a few minutes. I was like, I mean, we both have kids, man. Like.
I don't know. I can't talk. Yeah, let's take a call. Let's take a call. Yeah. I mean, hey Simon, you're on the stream. How's it going?
He's muted actually.
Yeah, you have to unmute yourself. You're muted. Hello, Simon. You are live. Hello, Simon. Okay, while we're waiting for Simon to unmute himself, I will take another caller. Talal Omar. Hello.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
All right. So first of all, many thanks to you guys. Whatever you are doing currently, like it's been 6 years. I'm looking for these forums, but suddenly now in last year, they started appearing all of these ex-Muslim channels and everything. So that's so great. And secondly, my question is regarding because I just joined 1.5 hour later. So probably you have discussed this hadith from Sahih Bukhari, Volume 7, Book 63, number 196, about the man who came to Prophet and he said he committed a sin and then like Prophet looked away. Probably you have. So I remember my, I'm going to call a scholar in the mosque, actually specifically telling this hadith. And how he defined it, he was like, yeah, Prophet never wanted to actually kill him. So that's why he looked away like 3 times. And then he was giving him like, oh, maybe you can just go away from here. And that man actually had a death wish himself. So if Prophet had looked away and he just wanted to go away, Prophet would have not done anything. So this like killing, it was his doing rather than Prophet's doing. That's how he actually defended this hadith. Now, of course, it doesn't make sense. There is this like a whole command, like you have to kill them. But how? What is your take on this then? Like,
we did discuss this hadith earlier, and one of the parts of the hadith that constantly pops up is when this guy was being stoned, he actually tried to run away. And he ran, and then the Sahaba chased him, grabbed him, and then finished him off. So that's the thing, right? Like I keep bringing it back to it because of how religions work and how beliefs can somehow push people into these psychological twisted places, where this guy actually thinks that the only way he can be forgiven by God is to kill himself. By telling the Prophet.
Yeah, this is a great point. And
it's a psychological.
This is all Muhammad's fault. Like, why do you need to kill anybody? Like, if he didn't want to kill him, he didn't have to kill him. And
can not God just forgive him?
The kind of question is, are you crazy?
Yeah, that's not how you determine it.
Yeah, but okay, on the same line, but it's not related to then like killing by stone. But I just had discussion like 3-4 years ago with some Muslim. I vaguely remember that discussion, but he was trying to defend the capital punishment on the account that everybody who has even killed someone else, or if the commandment is in the Quran, that is for the betterment of the society, in line that if you have killed someone, that person should be killed in the end. Now, this is, I'm talking on the morality lines rather than on the Islamic lines here. Like, because this is a general question, which if you're talking on morality lines, the ethical value, if this is right or wrong, like now, if we leave Islam out of the picture, what's your stance on that then?
So actually, we did discuss this, and we talked about how capital punishment does not seem to deter crime, does not seem to reduce the crime rates. Crime rates have been dropping, murder rates have been dropping all over the world for the last, like since forever. We're becoming more civilized as human beings. We're learning how to deal with, if you want to really know how to deter crime, how to reduce crime, how to deter, read Steven Pinker's and Better Angels. This guy has shown the real things that reduce crime, including the Leviathan effect. Having a central government reduces the crime rate so much, because you don't need to.
Your social trust.
There's someone that's going to take care of you. If you don't need to go and murder someone for stealing your cow, because there's a law in place. And like, this is, actual people that study these things can talk about this. What the Quran is so primitive and so outdated, so barbaric, and it's just using a big hammer and smacking everyone on the head. And
if you guys have read Brief History of Humankind, like, it just shows that barbaric times, like when it was more of killing a man for the killing a man, just like that's how they solved their disputes, and they didn't have this system or structure like we have right now to actually solve these disputes. So it do make sense. I was just talking, I just wanted to take your stance on it. I know like how Islam deals with these things. And one last thing, because I'm sure there will be more people in line. Can I ask a different question rather than the topic, or?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So currently, like, you guys are dealing with this Quran preservation thing quite a lot. Like on the Twitter, there is a whole lot of chat going on.
Yeah.
And one of the stance that have come out from the apologetics is like how ex-Muslims are dealing with Quran, like going word by word. It still doesn't change the fact. Now let's take this stance that Quran was not preserved, okay, word by word, but it still doesn't change the all the commandments. They still remain the same. Now I haven't seen any of your responses on that one. So are you preparing for that, or you're all right? So all right.
So I'll just quickly comment on the Quran preservation. Was that yes, the variants do in fact affect the meaning. At times where there's even in the modern Quran, you'll see. Have you noticed why Shias do when they're doing wudu? They only touch their feet.
Yes, I know that. I know that.
Something. There's a variant that caused this drama.
And also about that verse where if you have forgotten to keep the fast, then either you have to give to one person or you need to give to. But still, someone can say it doesn't matter. Just to be on safe side, just feed the 10 people so that you are on the safe side. You don't.
Yeah,
know.
but what I'm trying to say is if one of those readings had survived and not the other, and if, for example, if Watch was more popular than Hafs, people would be feeding more poor people.
Yeah, but just to be on devil's advocate here, the God would have understood. The God would have understood. Okay, something went wrong over here. Okay, still they are feeding poor people, so it doesn't matter in the end. So like on this particular part, like I'm just like I don't know what line to choose then. Like if somebody comes out on this preservation, attack it in this way. Like which line to choose then? There's
variants that exist in the current Quran and the Rivayas that generally do not affect the meaning significantly, but some of them have an effect on the meaning. Okay, and some of the verses, what also ends up happening is some of the verses flow better and make more sense with one variant reading.
Yeah,
there's something that happens is there's a verse and it'll have in one word it has in Hafs will say in the same verse it'll repeat the same word twice, saying yakhda'un yakhda'un, or Russian say yukhadi'un yakhda'un. And a lot of these variants are so pointless. That's one thing that Dr. Putin pointed out, that a lot of these variants don't bring anything extra to add to the interpretation or some new information. Like, why is it worth adding an extra vow? Wasari usari. What does it change, right?
Yeah, but that
if I
that goes back to
if I can just say one thing, we should look at the bigger picture here. The bigger picture is that, if what Muslims are claiming is that Allah sent the Quran in 7 ahruf. Why did he do that? Again, nobody even knows now because of all the contradictions. Like, for example, there's 2 Sahaba that were arguing over
I know.
And hold on, I'm going to explain it because not everyone knows, even if you know. I'm just going to mute you for 1 second. So the 2 Qurayshi Sahabi were arguing about an ayah. So clearly it's not an issue of dialect. Okay, because of these contradictions, Muslim scholars are confused as to what ahruf means. Even modern academics don't know what is an ahruf, because ahruf is plural of harf, letters, but what does it mean, right? And so what the Muslim claim is that Allah revealed this book in, let's say dialects or whatever, in order so that that small group of several thousand Arabs at the time of Muhammad would be able to recite it conveniently. So Allah has preferred a small group of a few hundred or a few thousand people over the billions that are going to come for the rest of humanity. Like, we have this mess now because of the fact that these variant readings, whatever they are, have done nothing but cause damage to the Quran.
Yeah,
has caused nothing but confusion, and this is so our claim is simple. Yeah, okay, forget the meaning change or doesn't change or whatever. What's the point of a book that has variant readings? Some of them say, and the variants appear to be, according to modern scholars, exactly what you would expect with flawed human memory and with the process of manuscript writing. Like
one thing I would like to add is, how do you distinguish if this is a variant versus a mistake? There's no objective diagnostic criteria given to us by the Quran. In fact, the Quran never mentioned this revealed in variants. Like,
the Quran itself doesn't even say that. It says it's revealed in clear Arabic, right? And it's preserved in a book up in the heavens. And like, it's a mess. So thanks for your call.
I will be online. I have a few other questions, but I think for now it's all right. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
No problem. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Just before we move on to the next one, just want to point out one irony is in Surah Hijr, where Allah says, "Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun," that we are the ones who reveal the Quran, we're going to preserve it. The verse prior to that has a variant. It's 15:8, and it's in Hafs it says ma nunazzil, and in Warsh it says ma tanazzil or something like that. So it's like it doesn't change the meaning that much, but it just like the first nunazzil flows better than tanazzil. And like I said, the discrepancy only arises because there were no diacritical marks. The skeleton of the word is the same. So like I said, and Arabic is a very precise language. If you miss a dot here and there, you can change, like yakula takula, right? Like who said. So it could change like who is saying, who's addressing, like qala qul. Did you say it, or are you being commanded to say it? So just that. Anyways, let's keep going.
It's a big problem because Allah chose a language that basically couldn't. It wasn't the language wasn't, all of these details until the 9th century, like the diacritical marks, the vowels. So you have like some of the old manuscripts without any dots, and So, anyways, I'm gonna take the next call. Simon. Hey, Simon, how's it going?
Hello, Simon.
How are you doing, guys?
Simon says.
Good. Thanks. Yeah.
So I'd like to get your feedback on a hadith that addressed the deterrent argument. Have you guys showed the hadith about the thief who stole repeatedly? And then
we're coming to that. The next segment is the amputation. It's coming right up.
Okay. So basically his response was pretty absurd. And Muslims actually had to correct him.
Hold on.
Can I share it on screen?
No, I'm going to share. 1 second. Yeah, one second.
Have both of them.
Let's discuss it, and then.
Okay, sure.
We can talk about
it. We'll talk about it. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead, Abdullah Gondal. Can you?
You want to talk about that specific one?
Well, let's talk about this, and then we'll take Simon's comment.
Okay. Sure. So one of the things, like in 530 of the Quran, says to chop the hands off, right? And it's just for as a deterrent, it says to chop the hands off of the thieves. Now the problem occurs is, put yourself back in the socio-political context, and why I say that the morality of Islam is stuck in the 7th century and is not flexible and not evolving like we should want it to. So think of it like this. Back in the 7th century, did they have the resources to put people in jail? No. I mean, it would be, in fact, unfeasible to do that, or have these thieves get rehabilitated. So back then, the mindset was coming from a point of vengeance, where I want to get back on this guy because he stole my property, right? One of the other things is what's the goal of this punishment? Are you cutting the thief off to punish him and deter, or are you actually trying to help these thieves reincorporate and integrate into society? The problem is, if you cut a person's hand off, he can't utilize that hand to work or get jobs in certain places or earn himself a living. So you kind of push him back and make him a social outcast. Because anybody that sees his hand will be like, oh, he's a thief, I'm not going to hire him. So you kind of make it worse for these people to integrate, right? It's not helping them. Now, one of the other interesting aspects I find is, and this is hilarious, hand chopping is not even Islamic. It is a pre-Islamic practice that existed before Muhammad. And what's ironic about this isn't the only pre-Islamic practice. There was blood money and qisas, and a bunch of other things got carried over, but Ibn Kathir mentions it in his tafsir that he knew this was a pre-Islamic practice. That's why I keep saying, is Islamic morality even really that new, divine, or revolutionary? No, it's copying over known punishments from pagan eras. So like I said, this is a story where they cut off a guy's hand for stealing some treasure. I mean, I'm not going to read through all of this, but point being is from Tabari volume 6, you can look it up, that this is pre-Islamic. Here is where it gets really interesting. Minimum value to chop off the hand, right? So the Prophet, for a quarter of a dinar and beyond that. Now, a dinar right now, for reference, it says 3.25 US dollars, quite a dinar. But then again, with that problem is inflation rates and whatnot. So the dinar doesn't have the same value. So what we do see is a lot of scholars in their books say 1 gram of gold, or 1 point something gram of gold is the minimum amount. and that amounts to about 55 to 60 US bucks. Okay, so you could lose a hand in modern day if this was implemented with this mathematical calculation for just stealing something worth 50, 60 bucks. Now, what's problematic is like it's very arbitrary. It's not really clear, because in the next hadith in Bukhari, he says that you can lose. Allah curses the thief who steals an egg or a helmet for which his hand is to be cut off, or steals a rope for which his hand is to be cut off. Stealing an egg or a rope, is this? No, that makes no sense. And like I said, you're not helping this poor thief. If he's at a point where he's stealing eggs and rope, the last thing he wants is to lose his hand so he can never make a living and he can keep going off. Now here again, like this is one thing. On the left side, we see that how the messengers ask how much is the thief's hand cut off for, and he says you're not supposed to cut it off if he steals the fruit on the tree, but it's supposed to be cut off if he hides and puts it and stores it. Same with the sheep. So don't steal sheep and fruit and hide them in your house. You can lose your hand. Now the one on the right from Imam Malik's Muwatta is very interesting. Can you go back? Yeah. So Yahya related to me from Malik, this guy was sleeping in a mosque and he was using his cloak as a pillow. A thief came and took his cloak, and Safwan grabbed hold of the thief and brought him to the Messenger of Allah. May Allah bless him and grant him peace. The Messenger of Allah, did you steal his cloak? He said, yes. So the Messenger of Allah said, oh, your hand needs to be cut off. And Safwan then says, no, please don't. I didn't want this guy's hand to be cut off over a piece of cloth. The Sahabi is like, I don't want this happening.
Wow.
Yes, the Messenger of Allah said, order that his hand to be cut off. Safwan said to him, I did not intend this. Jeez. It is as sadaqah. He's like, just give it to him for free. I did not want his hand cut off. I give it to him for free. So here you see the Sahaba is more empathetic than Muhammad. And then he's like, don't, this is crazy.
And he complains about it. He said, oh, why didn't you do that instead of bringing him to me? Like he's complaining, why the hell is your problem? So I guess he still I wonder if he still got his hand cut off.
Yeah. Now did Muhammad actually amputate hands? Like remember what Yasir Qadhi said, these are just deterrents, they're not implemented, they're just to scare people, you know. But actually, no, we see in the Sahih Bukhari in the left top, cut off the hand of a thief for stealing a shield that was worth 3 dirhams. Okay, so only 3 dirhams.
To make it, we have a comment from Ziad that dinar doesn't refer to Kuwaiti dinars. This was like a piece of...
Yeah. I explained that was just to give a point of reference, and then I said that because there's inflation with currency, we're not going to use that. That's why scholars use gold. We'll get to the slides from Reliance of the Traveler. So now on the right side, we see a woman from Banu Makhzum stole something, and the Prophet had her hand cut off. So he cut off the hand of one woman, he cut off the hand of a guy, and then he cut off the hand of a lady. Now I don't know if this is the same lady, but her hand was cut off, but she repented, and her repentance was sincere, but her hand was still cut off. Like, look, it says in narrated Aisha, the Prophet cut off the hand of a lady, so her hand is cut off. And that lady used to come to me, and I used to convey the message to Prophet. And she repented, and her repentance was sincere. It's like, here what I don't get, like Christian Trinity is like kind of like that. Jesus killed himself because he couldn't just forgive you. You have to cut your hand because God just can't forgive you. Or the person who's been wronged, he needs to see your hand cut off because that will somehow make it worthwhile for him. It makes no sense. Like I said, the lack of thought put into this shows that they're nonsense tribalistic punishments that have nothing but divinity. It's paganistic rituals copied over from before, and like I said, stoning and this stuff is also found.
I don't even know if it's pagan. It's just like their own sort of government, like the justice system.
Yeah, like pre-Islamic justice system.
Like religious, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, this is where that's the hadith that Simon was wanting to ask. Now, this guy was brought to the Prophet, and he said to kill him. The Prophet said he has only committed theft. The Prophet cut his off his hand.
Kill him?
Yeah. So if you steal too much, you're supposed to be killed.
Okay.
So watch this. So the Prophet said, kill him. Then the people were like, no, he just stole. So he's like, okay, cut off his hand. He cut off his one hand. Then his right hand was cut off. He was brought a second time for theft. and his hand was cut off again. This guy then, his foot was cut off. So his left foot was cut off. Then he's brought a third time, and he said, kill him. The people said he has only committed theft. So he cut off his left hand. He was brought a fourth time, so he cut off his... But the point is, this guy was some ninja thief that he kept stealing without limbs and feet.
Can you explain what a kleptomaniac is? I thought that was very interesting what you told me.
So the kleptomania is a disorder where people are compelled to just steal. Like, I just Google the definition, and I mean, I've worked, I wouldn't say what, but I've dealt and I've worked in law enforcement, and I have dealt with this. So yeah, I know people with exactly that problem, where I've arrested people that have stole 3 times within an hour in a shopping center because they just couldn't help themselves. Right? And some people, like judges in the criminal system knows about this, where I know a person where they went to court because I arrested them for theft, and an hour later when they were given like their community hours, they came back, and an hour later they were arrested again for the same offense. You can't help these people. But what I'm trying to get to is, if this hadith is true, that means Muhammad did not understand kleptomania from what it seems like. Now, problem is that hadith is just weird. A lot of people do not consider this sahih, because it's impossible to expect a limbless man somehow crawling on the... How did he steal the 5th time, or the 4th time, or the 3rd time?
Simon?
Yes. Excellent analysis, Mr. Gondal, and you're rocking it on Twitter, by the way. I love the source that you're sharing. Well, I think you went through basically what I wanted to talk about. Basically, deterrence has to do with the motivation. So there's different categories, right? There are those who steal for poverty. There are those who steal because they're antisocial. There are those who steal because they just lack impulse control. And they're crazy people as well. So an authoritarian parent or government, that will not really change your behavior. It will only change how you behave in front of people. So they just do it in secret instead. Yeah, I think you went through most of the points. This guy basically stole 5 times. He has no hands. He has no feet. And what can you say about that? And the Muslim had to correct Muhammad, which just shows me, for example, that he's making up as he goes. And by the way, can I share my screen? I want to share this kleptomania.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Can you see it?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, this is DSM-5 basically. So kleptomania is it's basically it has with impulse control to do. So I mean, if you steal because you lack food and you steal egg and get your hand chopped, I don't think the punishment fits the crime. And if you steal 5 times in a row, there's also something wrong there. So I guess that was the thing that I want your comments on. But
no, I actually really appreciate you showing the DSM-5. Just to people who don't know what the DSM is, it's a diagnostic statistics manual for mental health and neurological disorders. So basically, this is, I think, in the 5th edition. This is the go-to book where psychologists, psychiatrists, neurologists use to diagnose people and see what criteria is fit in. This is the source. And this does change as well a little bit. Like, for example, the last time it was like Asperger's and autism were separate, but now they're combined into one. But just letting it out there that this is the medical go-to holy grail book, apparently. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Simon.
Great work, and that's all. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you so much. That's a very good point, and thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the slides. I don't think there's that much more. What are the root causes for crime? Okay, so this was a survey actually shared by Apostle Prophet. He said in the last 25 years, massive literature has been generated documenting the importance of child abuse, poverty, early exposure to substance abuse, and other risk factors for criminal behavior. This was in the last 25 years, guys. The last 25 years, we've been able to analyze and figure out as humanity, standing on the shoulders of giants, you know, we've been able to do research. We've got the scientific method. We know so much more about human psychology now and criminology than Muhammad ever could have known in the 7th century. Like, to put this holy book on the top shelf and to disregard all of the evidence, scientific evidence, psychological understanding, criminology, like everything that we've gained as a society, and to just go and to just say, yeah. And, you know, like one of the questions that was asked earlier, would you prefer jail or your hand or flogging or your hand to be cut off? Gondal, would you prefer your hand to be cut off or go to jail for a few years? And what kind of dumb is that?
You can't grow back a hand, man. Like that's
no,
the
no,
point.
but
nowadays you can. Prosthetics actually pointless. Islamic thing is pointless because you have actually, here's the thing, you have prosthetics that neuroscientists have developed attached to your brain. You think and that moves corresponding. So what's also important, you can dial in and calibrate forces, and so these things have higher grip forces and whatnot than the average human hand. Yeah,
amazing. Oh my god. It's just like, the question doesn't make any sense. Prison is like, you know, the ideal prison, like they're trying to do in Sweden, is you go in there, they try to figure out what the hell happened with you, and they try to fix you. Or they keep you away from, if you're dangerous and you can't be fixed, they keep you away from other people so you don't harm anyone else.
I also remember they'll force you to like take college degrees or programs in university, and a lot of these criminals will go in and come out with degrees.
Yeah,
right? And that's what I'm trying to say. The rehabilitation and reintegration into society needs to be from an empathetic and sympathetic view, not from a vengeance 7th century tribalistic view.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about this.
Yeah, so we've all known the bad history between the church and the witches and the sorcerers. So, I mean, we know the church killed a lot of women for sorcery and witchcraft, but you would be surprised that Christianity isn't the only one. Islam did the too. So Yahya related to me from Imam Malik's Muwatta and Sahih, where that he heard Hafsa, the wife of the Prophet, killed one of her slave girls who had used sorcery against her. She was a mudabbara. Hafsa gave the order, and she was killed. So then Imam Malik says the sorcerer is the one who uses sorcery for himself, and no one else uses that except for him. It is, and he goes to quote the verse, I think that a person is killed if he does that himself. So Imam Malik is saying that sorcerers and witches should be killed. And he uses the ayah in the Quran to substantiate his viewpoint. And Saudi Arabia is still working on it. Now, the point is that this is not just the only hadith. We're just showing you one. There's about 4 or 5. But Omar actually gave orders as well to go kill, like he sent letters to his governors to kill magicians. But a side point just showing you, like, I mean, come on, dude. Like, you don't kill people for magic. Like, seriously?
That's ridiculous, eh? Okay,
Yeah.
so we went through this slide as well. Hold on, let me see. Okay, so what's the next topic? Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna skip ahead. Oh yeah, next one is this one.
Oh yeah. So crucifixion, amputation, and torture. Now in the Quran 5:33, it says, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and the Messenger is none but they be killed or crucified, or their hands and feet be cut off from opposite sides, or that they be exiled from the land. So this was regarded to the camel urine hadith. So the people, it's the bizarre incident where these people are like, oh, we don't feel well, we're new in Medina. Mom was like, go drink the camel milk and camel urine of these guys. They're like, oh, we're fixed. I love these camels. Let's run away with these camels. So they ran away with the camels and killed the guy. Muhammad had them captured, and then he cut their hands and feet off opposite sides, and then he threw them, let them bled out to death with their eyes gouged out in the desert. Some narrations say that these people did the same thing, hence they were retaliated with the same. But again, like, it's just bizarre. Like the وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ is cutting hands, and
we didn't send you except as a mercy to the world. Yeah, it's crazy, eh? Yeah, this was actually a very disturbing example. I think a lot of Muslims have a problem with it.
Let's go through a bunch of these quickly, and then we'll take a few calls at the end.
Okay.
So for homosexuality, it's no joke that it's known for a while, like it says here. Wherever you find doing as the people of Lot, i.e. homosexual, kill the one who does it and the one who's done it too. And this is very abundantly reported or relayed by Imam Ahmad and the 4 Imams of the trustworthy chain of narrators. Okay, so that is that. Now we know that the punishment for homosexuality is death. The Quran also mentions constantly about the people of Lot and the story and how Allah hates this and their transgressors and whatnot. Again, let's go to the next slide just to show you what so from Islam here, the problem isn't that they should be killed or not. Most Sahaba and scholars agree they should be killed. They differ on how they should be killed. And this is where the nonsense starts, okay? So Ibn Abbas said the highest point in the town should be found and homosexuals should be thrown head first from it, then stones should be thrown at him. He's dead when they falls down. Why stone a dead body? Then Ibn Abbas derived this had punishment from the punishment Allah sent on the people of homosexuals. So the reasoning is that Allah lifted their town and then lowered it, and he reduced them lower, and that's why he had to throw them from a higher point. Right? Very fine, and he gives the hadith we just gave.
Islamic logic.
Islamic logic, yeah. Homosexual is to be executed, but deferred concern the methods. It was near Abu Bakr Siddiq that he is to be burned. Oh my God. So Abu Bakr used to burn homosexual people. Damn. It was narrated, some of them, that a wall is to be knocked down on top of him until he dies beneath it. Like, come on, dude. This isn't like fucking medieval torture game. Like, what is this? They find the most creative ways. Like, why does it... One of the things I actually forgot to mention earlier is, like, a lot of people, just a thought I want to leave you with is death even a punishment? If you kill somebody, they don't feel pain. It's you know. So there's a lot of the reasoning that goes into this from a philosophical side. We won't delve into this right now. I just wanted to leave that thought out there. Now he goes then, and it is said that both should be detained in the foulest of places until they die. So homosexuals should be jailed or imprisoned. Like their death row should be a foul place. It is narrated. Taken to the highest place and thrown down from it, followed with stones, as Allah did to the people of Lut. Yeah, because he threw the town and then he had stones thrown at them with the marked stones for each person. It makes sense. Allah heavenly stoned these people. Oh, okay. This is narrated by Ibn Abbas. In another report, he used to be stoned like normal stoning. This was the view of the majority of the Salaf. So they just had to stone the person, don't throw him off the top of the building. Allah stoned the people of Lut, and stoning is prescribed for the Zani if they have reached the age of puberty. If one of them has reached the age... Okay. All right. So next slide. All right. So here we have the lash those who drink alcohol. Point is, so this is funny. A man who drank wine was brought before the Prophet in Hunayn, and he threw some dust on his face and then ordered his companions to beat him with their sandals and whatever they had in their hands. This is childish. This guy comes in, everybody throwing dirt on him and beating him with sandals. He then said to them, leave him, and they left him. And then the Messenger of Allah died, Abu Bakr. So there's punishments, and they vary from different caliphs. So Abu Bakr used to give 40 lashes. Omar used to inflict 40 stripes. And at the end, he lowered it to, he actually inflicted 80 stripes. Uthman inflicted both punishments, 80 and 40 stripes. And finally, Muawiyah established 80 stripes.
This is like the Islamic AAA. Instead of talking about your problems and seeking help from God, you just get beaten up. Wow.
Islamic, no. So on the right side, it says, whoever drinks khamar, whip him, again drinks, whip him, again drinks, whip him, and if he drinks again, kill him. So we have one says it just to whip him.
It's crazy.
Let's keep going.
Okay.
All right.
This one, I think, almost we can make we might make a full video on this. This is there's a lot
we'll
here.
Brush on top for a little bit, but I think let's take one call about the few things you covered, and then we'll end up with the apostasy blast.
Hello, Talal. I'll come again. Question you have? Unmute your mic.
Yes. Hello. Yeah, it's generally not about the topic, so I can wait. Like it's not that important. I just want because it's just first time I'm interacting, so a lot of stuff coming in. I don't know when I'm gonna get the next time.
Mm-hmm.
So what I am more concerned about is like these new apologetics. Like it was super easy if you think about it, just to attack if you want to attack on Islam just before 1960s, 1970s era. But then came Maududi, and now like a lot of them coming in who have
try to change the narrative of what Islam actually is. And most dominantly, if you are aware of Gandhi and all of that, and they reject all kind of hadiths and like because they have this perfect picture of Prophet and Allah. They say whatever doesn't fit that picture, you can easily reject it. You don't even have to do all of that hadith checking if anybody lied or anything. I don't know what that is called, but they just reject it on the basis of that Prophet and Allah can't be like this, and it's their own worry.
It's a presupposition, right? They don't realize that they've been conditioned by society to view issues like slavery or stoning and amputation or these barbaric practices to be very bad. And because of that, like I say, Muslims are normally better than their books, where they will put their own sense saying that, now listen, this actually is very bad. You shouldn't be killing apostates or homosexuals or people. Freedom of speech and religion is good. And then they'll push the Quran and force it into pushing that narrative. Even though it's intellectually dishonest because we have too much evidence from Islamic sources, I'm still okay with these people because what they're doing is they're giving an alternative to the Salafis that have erupted. They're giving an alternative, non-literalistic, modernized, reformed version of Islam that is more palatable, is not as strict and not as crazy. And even though I don't necessarily agree that they're doing it in an intellectually rigorous way, or even if it's intellectually rigorously, honestly possible to reform Islam, I still side with them because they create so I would take a Sufi any day over a Salafi, okay? Or I'll take a Mufti Abu Layth any day over Sheikh Al-Ambani or Sheikh Al-Salih Al-Fawzan or something, right? So I understand like the apologetics, they're getting more and more, but at the same time, if you're pushing for a more reformed version of Islam, I'll generally leave you to it. That's why I focus more on debunking Salafi, Sunni, Orthodox, literalist Islam, because that's the most dangerous. And I don't really go into debunking Ghamidi and Mufti Abu Layth because they're my allies. They're our allies. They're helping people to become more lenient. That's all.
Yeah, but for now, I do see a little bit harm in that, because if we don't start attacking them now or something, like, because they have huge flaws when it comes to traditional Islam and how it has been interpreted during the last 1400 years. It is going to be like Christianity, like it has softened up quite a bit in past 300, 400 years.
Yeah.
But on some aspect, it has actually, you can't attack them on that front. You can't attack like how we are attacking Quran now, like on the literal term. So like there should be some effort on that regard too. I just feel like that because there is not that much literature on that aspect. Like if I want to go against Gandhi or something, then I need to go really deep in, like, okay, if he's interpreting like that, it is logical, it can be like this, but then you don't have those kind of rebuttals like what you have against Salafis. So that's the kind of thing that I'm a little bit worried about.
Yeah. So what we'll do is, like I said, I would rather push right now to get the literalist interpretations out. I feel that's the number one priority for me. Once those things are gone, we can focus on Islam being more modernized and slowly attack the other reformist positions. But that comes back to me saying that, like I said, a realistic and pragmatic approach is to be adopted and not a utopic approach that Islam's going to vanish. All right. So
Thanks
we
for your
don't
call,
have
Talal.
much time.
I just gonna add one thing to that is that I have no problem with Muslims being Muslim if they want to practice the religion. If they're not stepping on my feet, they're not forcing the religion down my throat, I don't care. Like if your religion is harmless, like Mufti Abu Layth made a response video to my 10 strange rulings in Islam, where he basically said none of these are Islamic according to the way he interprets Islam. I'm like, good. Like people are saying, respond to him. Why?
Why? He's helping us.
I don't care.
If he says that alcohol is okay or weed is okay or go have extramarital, I'm like, yeah, I know it's not okay and Islamically you can't sustain it, but I don't mind if you want to push that narrative because you're pushing people into a more modern way. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, okay, so, oops.
Let's quickly run through these slides in like 2 minutes, and then we'll end it, right? So, the point is, like, we know that apostasy, the capital punishment, is a known thing, controversial. It comes back from the left side. We see that whoever changes religion, kill him. On the right side, we see that Osman overlooked the people, and he explained that the blood of a Muslim, Coast Messenger of Allah saying, the blood of a Muslim man is not lawful except for 3 cases: illegitimate sexual relations, that is zina, we've talked about, and apostasy that we're talking about, and then is murder. And the guy says, I've never committed zina, nor did not during Jahiliyyah, and have not committed apostasy. So one thing we can establish from here, that apostasy can warrant the death penalty in classical Islamic law. Let's keep going, and we'll actually delve into the opinion of scholars as well. So let's see, did the Sahaba execute apostasy? So on the left side, you see that there was a Jew who was in chains, and he had left the religion of Islam after joining it. And then he then converted to his religion, an evil religion. He said, I will not sit until he's killed according. And he repeated it 3. And the Sahaba was adamant to get this guy killed for leaving the religion, as you can see there. On the right side, you see that Ali actually burned some people who apostated, and this news reached Ibn Abbas, and Ibn Abbas was like, no, don't burn them. I mean, you can just kill them. That's okay, right? And then Ali said, Ibn Abbas told the truth, affirming that apostates should be killed. Let's go quickly to the next slide and quickly zoom through some scholarly opinions. This is from the Lines of the Traveler. We've seen, leaving Islam is the ugliest form of disbelief and kufr. It may come about through sarcasm, as when somebody is told, trim your nails, it is sunnah, and he replies, I would not do it even if it were. That could constitute apostasy. As opposed to when circumstances exist which exonerate him committed apostasy. When a person who has reached puberty and is sane voluntarily apostatizes from Islam, he deserves to be killed. In such a case, it is obligatory for the caliph or representative to ask him to repent and return to Islam. If he does, it is accepted from him, but if he refuses, he is immediately killed. Again, if a free man, no one beside the caliph or his representative may kill him. If somebody else kills him, the killer is disciplined. So vigilanteness, he'll be disciplined. It's not okay. But the killer will still not be killed. There is no indemnity for killing an apostate or any expiation, since it's killing someone who deserves to die. If he apostatizes from Islam and returns several times, his repentance is accepted, though he is disciplined. Number 3, to speak words that imply a disbelief, as Allah is a third of the 3 friends, making jokes about Allah, reviling the Messenger of Allah, deny the existence of Allah, His beingness, eternity, and angels, or being sarcastic about Allah's name can all lead you to be an apostate. Let's go to the next slide. What other things can lead you to apostasy? So deny that any verse of the Quran, which scholars agree belongs to, so tahrif, variance, tahrif, you can become an apostate. Mockingly say, I don't know what faith is, joking about it. Yep. To reply to someone who says there is no power or strength through Allah, tawakkal Allah. If you say you don't trust Allah, you're kafir. Sister, if you say I act without the decree of Allah, you don't believe in qadr, you're kafir. If you do takfir, one of you is kafir. If you do takfir on a Muslim, one of you is apostate.
This is a takfir check notebook for people who want to know what to.
Yeah. Now, if you're asked to teach somebody the kalima, the shahada, and you refuse, you're an apostate. To describe a Muslim who wants to become a Muslim in terms of belief, to deny the obligatory character of something by which consensus of Muslims is part of Islam, which is like well known, like prayer, salah. If you deny any of these central tenets, you become an apostate. To say that any of the prophets are liars in the past, or that they were actually not sent. Remember, metaphors, stories. You say that, you become a kafir. To revile the religion of Islam will lead you to become a kafir, apostate. To believe the things in themselves, to deny the existence. So you deny the existence of angels and jinns or the heaven, and you say they're metaphorical only. You're not. You're an apostate. To be sarcastic about religion. Yeah, I mean, the guy says at the end, the subject is nearly limitless. But what I'm trying to get to, this is taken from the words mouth of great, giant Muslim scholars who are saying this. Like I said, we can go make a whole video on this, but we'll quickly jump to blasphemy. We have 2 minutes, and we're going to quickly end it. So Muhammad had a huge dead poet society. He killed Ka'b bin Ashraf because he used to write poets. He killed Abu Rafi. He had a huge list of poets he'd kill. And then we'll go in the next where we'll see he'd kill singing slave girls. And he liked killing slave women for some reason who abused him. Yeah, it's very sad.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide. There were these singing Fartana. On the left, you see is from Ibn Saksira. This is repeated in Tabari as well. Great detail. They go into that. He killed them. Now, on the right side, we have the blind concubine that was murdered. This is a very known incident where this this blind man had a concubine, and she used to revile the Messenger of Allah. She was an older lady, and she also was Ummul Walad. She was the mother of the guy's sons. The guy warned her, and she wouldn't stop reviling the Messenger of Allah. So one night he took a dagger, stabbed her, and killed her. And then he went to the Messenger of Allah, and Muhammad says, "Don't worry, no retaliation is paid for blood. It's okay. You're not in trouble. You killed her. That's all fine." I mean, it shows like how blasphemy killings have a grounding in Islamic literature. Let's keep going. I think. Yeah, so let's quickly go to Qadi Iyaad. Shifaa is a book written by, he's a big Maliki scholar, I think. And he wrote some few things. I'm going to quickly go through them. Many of the jurists who viewed flogging him were known. And so the Imams, so Malik about the original story, he said prophets, by viewership, delivery, and consideration, is incumbent to kill the one who disparages or reviles the prophet. Okay? I'm not going to go through. I'm going to just quickly read the scholarly opinions. Levantine scholars, in the authority of Malik, it was a statement adopted by Thawri, Abu Hanifa, and the Kufan scholars. Therefore, Abu Bakr. So the scholars infer from that the hadith that one who offends or reviles the prophet is to be slaughtered. So in the case of reviling the Messenger of Allah, he is to be killed with impunity. So Malik says, whoever reviles the prophet is to be killed, and whoever reviles the prophet's companions is to be flogged according to the prescribed penalty for cursing others falsely. So you can get flogged for the companions. Interesting. He gives the proof. So it says it involves that Allah curses. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. It's more clear on that one. Like this book, there's chapters and chapters, and so killing may be prescribed, and the one who offends Allah and His Prophet is graver, namely killing that one. So he's stated the view of consensus of scholars concerning the narrations and traditions regard as the issue. Al-Hussein bin Ali narrated through his father that the Messenger of Allah said, "Whoever reviles the Prophet, kill him, and whoever reviles my companions, flog him with the prescribed penalty." In the sound hadith, the Prophet commanded to kill Ka'b bin Ashraf, like we talked about. Qadi Iyaad is using that as evidence to justify killing blasphemers, okay? And in the next saying, he says, without warning, he killed them, unlike the polytheists. And likewise, Abu Rafi, we talked about, was slaughtered for the same reason of blasphemy. He used to offend Allah and the Messenger and help his enemies against Islam, i.e. writing satirical poems. Commanded to kill Ibn Qatal and both his slave girls who used to slander him. We talked about those earlier. We're just looking at how many people Muhammad just killed for blasphemy. He suffices against my enemy, revile my companion. Yeah, it's constant, like whoever false statement against the Prophet, he should be slaughtered. I heard my father living obscene statements against you. What? Ibn Qani reported, a man came to the Prophet saying, "Oh Allah's Messenger, I heard my father delivering obscene statements against you, so I killed him." Therein the Prophet did not object to that. That's so messed up.
Killed his dad. Wow. So let's summarize everything that we said. Basically what we discussed, Islam, uses these barbaric, sort of very blunt instruments in trying to deal with justice. It doesn't know about human psychology. It doesn't take advantage of all that we've learned over the last 1400 years, whatever, 600 years or so since the Prophet came, and all of the accumulation of knowledge has shown us that Islam doesn't make sense, that these laws don't help humanity, they don't help society. that Islam basically doesn't make any sense. I mean, simply put, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, a lot of these practices aren't actually even new. They've been going on from the Jahiliyyah practices, as they call it. Practices the pre-Islamic ignorant time.
Yeah.
But they weren't ignorant enough.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, hand chopping is okay. Yeah, let's call that in. Blood money is okay. Come on, you know. So at the end of the day, like, I see that these things, these punishments and stuff, are also not taught out. Like we pointed out, they're being made up. These laws are being made up as you go along, and you're like, oh shit. And then Muhammad will kind of backtrack to somehow fix them, and it becomes a comedy. It actually it's comical at a certain point, right? And like I said, the Muslim view on morality in these hadith is not nuanced enough for society in the 21st century. And if Yasir Qadhi is saying we need to update and reform this, that also implies that you are telling me that your subjective view on morality and what should fit and is better for society now outweighs what Allah told us. That means you know better than Allah.
It has to be the case, because you can never have something set in stone that doesn't, it's just not going to fit as times change, right? Unless it's extremely very vague and general. You can never have specific rulings, and I think we have a lot of material we can actually cover in future streams. Something, you know, we can talk about the divorce laws, we can talk about whatever, you know, about the Prophet and Zainab and how inheritance and adoption and all that. If you guys have questions and you'd like to ask for the next time, please tell your Muslim friends as well to call in, and we will take more callers next week. Hopefully next week we will do this again on Friday as well. Thank you guys all so much for your support, for your super chats. And like I said, we're going to make eventually a new channel for this once we have a little bit more steam built up and we think it's ready to be launched on its own. Any other final words, Abdullah Gondal, you want to add?
I think from my side, it's good, and I think we covered a lot of good points, and we did delve into a lot of what I wanted to do, like you said, is to show that vengeance and physical harm and beheading and capital punishments are not good for people. And we demonstrated that, and we also demonstrated what I wanted to do was think about the lack of nuance put into the Islamic thought when these things were being coined is also very important. So we can show Muslims that these aren't revolutionary or ideas that are like one Hudood or this chopping hands is like, you know, one-stop shop for fixing all of the tough problems of the world. I mean, we also showed that Muhammad, in fact, did not understand criminal psychology, or seems to not understand it at all. And like I said, we mentioned about how integrating people back into society, cutting their hands off is not the best way to go, and how couples and taking mothers away from children because they just had premarital sex and letting the kids struggle in 7th century Arab society where our orphans are mistreated. It's kind of like...
Even today.
Yeah, even today.
Yeah.
Like I said, I enjoyed the stream as usual, and I appreciate the input the callers gave us, and it was fun.
You're a liar.
Like I said,
just a piece of advice. That's not the best way to start a conversation. Why did you lie about this? Come on, like, be a little more charitable. Try to, like, be fair at least. Like, is this what you meant? Is this what you were trying to say? Do you think that you made a mistake?
Well, like I said, if they come from a point where they've only watched his video, right, they have absolutely no idea of the argument even I'm making, because so they will come up, oh, you're a liar, liar, liar. I'm like, okay, let's have a talk. I'll show you my video, then you can judge for yourself what happened here, what the argument was. No, you're a liar. No, you're a liar. If you keep asserting that, the conversation is not going to go anywhere. Like I said, I'm also admitting, like, me nor Samir are perfect. We make mistakes, and I'm happy to acknowledge them and move forward. And to acknowledge them in a way, in a mature way, in an academic way, I'm like, okay, yeah, people make mistakes. You don't have to make everything into a meme. Like, I'll give you one example of how the immaturity shows up. Like Jalaluddin al-Tabari, right? Like, I used that name. A lot of the times what happens is I would use the tafsir of Jalaluddin al-Suyuti, and then after that, Tabari. So in live streams, when you're talking for 2 hours, you can misspeak. This is nothing that should be turned into a big drama, right? I admitted, yeah, I did misspeak his name, and a few times it does happen. But I also spoke his name correctly a few times. And the point is, if I can speak his name correctly a few times, that shows that I'm not intentionally mispronouncing his name.
Yeah.
And also that the pronunciation of his name has no bearing on the argument.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and the thing is, like, I can show more worse examples from these Dawah channels where they're talking about scientific things, but are butchering names and scientific terminology and concepts like there is no tomorrow. But like I said, we have better things to do.
Yeah.
Focus on the argument. If we want to talk, let's come and talk like men instead of making memes and videos.
If this is the level of like this is how these people interact with this, we're not going to waste our time. We're not going to respond. We're not gonna engage. And frankly, like, some of these people, like, they blocked me because I make money off attacking Islam or whatever. Okay, fine. So don't talk to me then. Like, don't. And people asking me to respond to this guy, that guy. He said he doesn't want to talk to me. So let him make his little videos. I don't care. That's fine. If there's something of substance we want to address, we will address it in one of these streams, or someone can call in and bring it up, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. And let's see. We'll choose a topic for next week. But what we could do is we'll love to have your suggestions. So if you want anything special or specific to be discussed next stream, let us know. It could be the age of Aisha. We could do a deep dive in, or blasphemy and apostasy. Let us know. And from me until then, Science Hafiz.
Science Hafiz.